Immortal Cultivation in the Cybernetic Milky Way. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyright or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26. It would be a shame to earn more. The next day, Nanling changed his clothes and went to Fenyuan Maintenance Department to report. He glanced at Aunt Liji, who was still sleeping, and did not disturb her, and went out by himself. Even if there was only one brain left, he had to sleep. As long as he did not get rid of the physical body, sleep was necessary. It was not only to restore his body, but also to restore the loss of his spirit. Nanling went out but did not go outside. Instead, he walked into the internal elevator of the Yunding Tianju and pressed the button to the 300th floor. The next moment, he only felt that his body was under a lot of pressure for a short time, but then the pressure disappeared again, and he was already rising rapidly. In this elevator, he only took less than 1 minute to rise to the height of the 300th floor, moving a distance of more than a kilometer. Of course, this is just a civilian facility. If it is a military facility, it would be even more exaggerated, but it would also require a stronger physical fitness to be able to withstand it. The elevator door opened, and when Nanling walked out, it was a rather open platform, surrounded by a feeling of clouds and mist. Because of the huge internal space of this Chunyuan 06 space station, in fact, each layer has formed a unique climate feature. At this time, under Nanling's feet is a moist sea of clouds, which is the real origin of the name of Yunding Tianju. Soon, a shuttle bus was parked in front of him, and many people waiting around him walked in together. These are people who go to work at Fenyuan Operation Company. In fact, Nanling had inquired before that there are many such people living in this Yunding Tianju, so there will be a shuttle bus to pick people up every morning. This saves a sum of money for transportation. He definitely considered all of this when he chose to rent a house in this building. No one talked along the way, and people were as cold as ever. After arriving at the station, he came to a very large building, which was the administrative building of Fenyuan Operation Company. Looking at the main building that extends out of the sky, Nanling remembered that it was explained that this company was opened on the central axis of the entire Chunyuan 06, so its administrative building is self-contained and also runs through the upper, middle and lower 3 layers of Chunyuan 06. However, the affairs department in the lower area is probably in a semi-abandoned state, and working there can cost you your life if you are not careful. Nanling found his maintenance department without much effort according to the guidance of the Intelligence Corps. Although this maintenance department is one, the business scope is divided into 3 layers: upper, middle and lower. There are also field work, that is, the work of maintaining the space station in the outer sky. Originally, this kind of field work is the best job, but in Nanling's opinion, working like a bounty energy pipeline maintenance is the most efficient job to make money. There was no one to receive him when he arrived at the maintenance department, because all the procedures had been completed on the internet long ago. He had already obtained the authorization code. He only needed to go to the designated location and provide the authorization code, and there would be AI guidance. And when he hit the Intelligence Corps, it was even simpler, and he didn't even need AI guidance. His Intelligence Corps would naturally tell him what to do next. The increasingly convenient technology is gradually reducing the contact between people. Nanling didn't care about this. Under the guidance of the Intelligence Corps, he walked all the way to an equipment room and directly received his own maintenance suit and a classic windcomb pistol. This windcomb was specially given to him for self-defense because of his poor working environment, full of humanistic care. However, in fact, the windcomb pistol uses a charged magazine, which triggers the firing of wind attribute magic bullets, that is, windcomb magic. This is a primary attack spell, which is powerful at close range, but has little killing power at a distance. Even for those energy pipelines with strong radiation, even if you shoot at them, there is no harm, because the windcomb can easily collapse prematurely due to the strong radiation. This kind of weapon is given to Nanling, and it is purely for bluffing, probably to give him courage, and then worry that he will shoot randomly and damage the originally good equipment. Nanling really doesn't care about this. After he got the equipment, he turned around and went out. Because he also got his own work assignment. The entire underground of the middle layer is also in the mezzanine above the lower layer. Every point that needs maintenance and repair is marked on the map. With the Intelligence Corps, he doesn't need to worry about this kind of thing. And these points look like bounties. The difference is that the bounty requires him to complete the task to get the reward, while the maintenance tasks at these points can get half of the bounty by accepting the task. Nanling took a nearby task at the time to test the waters. He changed into a maintenance uniform and simply took the elevator from the inside of the administrative tower to the mezzanine area. There were no points around the administrative tower that needed maintenance, so he had to walk farther in the mezzanine. There was a dedicated maintenance passage in the mezzanine, which was originally a place where maintenance vehicles could quickly pass through. Unfortunately, due to the serious damage to the energy pipeline, these maintenance passages are temporarily unusable. Nanling could only walk forward. Fortunately, there was a micro-anti-gravity system on the maintenance uniform. When there was enough energy, he could directly float slightly in the air, and then quickly pass through the mezzanine in a floating posture. Nanling moved faster, and he directly created wind pressure to boost himself. And he could accurately control these airflows, so he could naturally let his body move quickly and freely in the mezzanine under anti-gravity. In just 10 minutes, he arrived at the first maintenance point. He only took a look, and the intelligence core was already analyzing the fault for him. The design drawings of the entire energy pipeline have been entered into the intelligence core, which is something that a maintenance worker must master. Originally, these materials should be obtained by him after he receives a specific point task, but who made him reach 95 credit points? Since he is a maintenance worker, he has the qualifications to download the entire set of pipeline design drawings. However, it is impossible for him to dismantle the machine with the existing equipment for maintenance. He can only accurately determine the damaged area and then send his findings back through professional communication equipment. If the maintenance channel is unobstructed, the maintenance department can send the spare parts he needs to replace on the spot, but now the maintenance channel is unusable, so he must go back to get it himself. To be honest, running back and forth like this is the real danger for the successive maintenance workers in this mezzanine. Fortunately, perhaps because of the recent turmoil in the space station, Nanling's first mission was completed very calmly without any waves. Then he realized one thing, that is, because of the recent turmoil, the scum in the lower area dared not act rashly for the time being. This is really good news. Nanling can't help but start to brush tasks. What a good opportunity to make money. Chapter 27. Earn more or less, feel free. Nanling returned to his new home with a smile on his face. He looked into the room and saw the head still lying on the bed. She felt that life suddenly became boring, but she still paid attention to Nanling when he came back and said, "You seem to be in a good mood. Did your work go well today?" Nanling nodded and said, "Yes, I directly deposited 15,000 Lingzhu points into my account. This money is too easy to make." He went back and forth to 5 maintenance points today, and his income increased instantly. By the way, the Z harvested a lot of maintenance data, and he could become a senior maintenance worker all of a sudden. Zibi is so unreasonable. It can be said that it directly improved Nanling's abilities in all aspects to a level beyond the human range. It's also because this thing is too expensive outside, and it takes a whole set of 3 pieces to work. This is the key. Li Ji was surprised and asked, "What do you do? How do you earn so much a day?" Nanling then talked about his work. Li Ji was so excited that she said, "You really found a loophole. The whole Dust Margin 06 is in a state of panic now. Those bad guys in the lower levels have to stay in the market and dare not come out to cause trouble. You can make a lot of money now. I'm worried that Fen Yuan will wake up and adjust the price. Why don't you take advantage of the convenience now and just do a few more orders?" Nanling shook his head decisively and said, "I love money, but making money is just a way to achieve my goal. For me, cultivation is more important." As he said that, he simply ate some tasteless nutritional paste and started to meditate and refine his ki again. He continued to compete with the wisdom core, and he gradually felt the fun. Of course, he couldn't do anything when refining ki. The wisdom core operated the standard route for him and he couldn't change it at will. He just worked hard to learn and master the details. The strong sense of crisis made him always worry about what to do if he lost the wisdom core one day. Wouldn't he not be able to mobilize his own spiritual power? So Zhi was operating the spiritual power in his body in the most efficient way, while he was constantly trying to slow down the process, trying to figure out the details bit by bit. He was so hypocritical, always opposing Zhi. If Zhi really had his own wisdom, he would probably be furious. Li Ji saw his sobriety and attitude towards life, and showed a rather admiring expression. She said, "You are always so sober. I wish I could be like you when I was young." She was quite disappointed, obviously in a state of confusion and regret for her current state. Nanling did not mean to enliven him, but just asked. Didn't you say you found a public security commissioner job? Why didn't you report? Li Ji said. I didn't go because I got up late today. Okay, you must take me with you when you go out tomorrow. We should be in the same building. Nanling thought about the building that connected the sky and the earth, and nodded to show that he understood. Let's go to work together. So he continued to struggle with his intelligence core that night. It was not known whether it was an illusion or not, but he had already felt that the intelligence core's control over his spiritual power was actually completed under a constant force. As long as he could resist that force, he could regain control of his spiritual power. In this way, the whole night passed between the intelligence core and its rebellious host. When Nanling got up in the morning, he felt a little tired, because it was a bit exhausting to struggle with the intelligence core. He felt that this kind of thing should be done in moderation and not be too obsessed. So he simply brushed his teeth and washed up, then picked up the head that was not awake yet and went to work. Anyway, the head did not need to be washed and excreted, so it was not too convenient. In the shuttle bus, the people who were traveling with him cast curious glances. But they did not think it was too strange. After all, there were too many strange people these days. When they arrived at the place, Nanling put Li Ji's head down and went to the maintenance department. Li Ji had just woken up at this time. She blinked her eyes, and mechanical spider legs grew under her neck, and then took her to the place where she was going to report. Like Nanling, she had to come to get equipment. When the two of them changed their equipment and agreed to meet again, Li Ji smiled proudly when they looked at each other. Because Nanling's maintenance uniform looked too old-fashioned, but she was different. The Public Security Department directly equipped her with a mighty and valiant female police prosthesis. Thin waist, plump hips, and mountains. Is this the prosthesis of the Public Security Commissioner? I'm afraid it's for undercover in some improper places. Anyway, Li Ji was very satisfied with it. With her perfect quality head, she felt that her spirit was rising again. Even the two cute balls on her head were put down, leaving a long shawl hair to show her feminine charm. Although this is actually a cold steel body, Li Ji's vanity has swelled again. Nanling was indeed a little frightened. He thought it was no wonder that people in this era didn't want to go out. After all, this kind of prosthesis and the bionic skin on the prosthesis were more perfect than real people. I'm afraid that some people with psychological problems would be confused about life and their own existence. Nanling waved goodbye to Aunt Li Ji, who suddenly became a beautiful girl, and continued to dig his hole. He felt that he might be single for the rest of his life. After all, his outlook on life and the world were incompatible with the people of this era. Today's work was a little bit unsatisfactory, because a piece of equipment was completely broken and needed to be replaced on a large scale before it could continue. So he was busy with this matter almost all day, and he finally repaired this point after working all day. In addition to the inexplicable increase in a lot of maintenance experience, he must have lost a lot of money this day. But when he went back to settle the work, he didn't have any resentment at all. After all, earning 3,000 Lingzhu points a day was considered a high salary, and this was also a good thing that he could never ask for before. After finishing this job today, Nanling hesitated for a while and decided to stay home first. He decided to connect to the virtual community of Dust Echo 6 at home, and then choose a direction for himself to improve his abilities. It was tiring to fight with the rebellious intelligence core every day. He decided that while letting the intelligence core control his spiritual power, his consciousness could also do something else. For example, he could hone his combat skills. He always felt that he was definitely not an ordinary person, and it was quite dangerous to work in the mezzanine all the time, so he should prepare some more self-defense skills for himself. He started to study this aspect on the way back, and after a little hesitation, he spent 300 spiritual baht points to buy the basic combat technique. It would not be wrong to start with the basics. Chapter 28 The Hidden Power in the Body. Basic martial arts is not actually basic, it is the essence of all unarmed combat, otherwise you wouldn't have to spend money to buy it. It's just that there are not many scenes of unarmed combat in this era, so only 300 Lingzhu points are needed to show your appreciation. Nanling went back to his rented room and lay down to study it carefully. The intelligence core has loaded and recorded all the thousands of basic techniques and styles in the basic martial arts, allowing him to look through it. However, the more he read, the more strange he felt, as if a switch was turned on all over his body and he began to itch. This was very abnormal. Nanling immediately logged into Chinyuan 06, and then opened a training room at the high price of 2 Lingzhu points per hour. He began to practice various routines of the basic martial arts in this training room. He was very smart and practiced very well, but he always felt that something was not right, as if something was missing. Nanling sat up again, feeling the restlessness in his body, and paced back and forth for a while without being impatient. He suddenly turned his head and looked at the curtain next to him. As soon as the thought came to his mind, the curtain opened under the control of the intelligence core, revealing a messy alley outside. Nanling hesitated for a moment. Although he was disgusted in his heart, the restlessness of his body obviously overwhelmed it. He changed into a more casual outfit, put on shoes, and then opened the glass of the French window. In order to facilitate the entry and exit of the residence, this French window is actually an entrance and exit for passage. It is convenient for others, but it is disgusting for Nanling. This alley is too dirty and smells bad, otherwise the rent would not be so cheap. But now Nanling doesn't mind it. He directly uses wind pressure to blow away all kinds of debris and dirt on the ground, and then under gas perception, he purifies the air here. He only wants oxygen and nitrogen, and no other gases. Not to mention, although it is artificially prepared air, it smells much better, at least it doesn't stink. Nanling laughed and walked into the alley. He felt that if he could control the environment here, it would be like having an extra yard for free. He took a deep breath and thought the smell was okay, so he simply gave the smart core a task, asking it to use the spiritual power in the spiritual furnace to maintain the air environment here. So he didn't have to worry about the smell here. While enjoying the convenience brought by the smart core, he was worried that the function of the smart core was too powerful. He was such a weird person. Then, he started practicing the routines and techniques in the basic fighting technique in his backyard. Previously, he practiced in the virtual space as a heartbeat, but now it was a direct body movement. As a result, he was stunned by his body. Because these routines seemed to have muscle memory, they were naturally expressed before he thought about how to move. After more than 1,000 movements, his smart core had already given him a systematic summary. The user was detected to have fighting skills LV3. Directly LV3. Nanling found that his body had learned these things first, which was like his brain being crushed by muscles. He was at a loss for a moment. When did he learn these things? Don't say he was a time traveler. This was the ability of the original owner. When he came here, the original owner was just a little baby with an empty brain. This is not so much a time travel as it is a reincarnation without drinking Mangpo soup. Then the question is, he didn't learn it himself, but how did he get this powerful muscle memory? Nanling was curious, but he felt that this was not his limit. There was still a lot of potential in his body that had not been tapped, so he kept practicing in this deserted alley in order to tap all the secrets in his body. About an hour later, the smart core updated him with information. It was detected that the user's fighting skills had been upgraded to LV4, please keep up the good work. Wow, it was upgraded to LV4 inches just 1 hour, which was faster than when he practiced the wind control technique. But the two feelings were different. He clearly felt that he was improving and exploring the wind control technique bit by bit. And this fighting technique is to tap into the potential in your body, to dig out some things that are already deeply rooted but previously hidden. At this time, he heard the sound of the door opening in his room, and he knew that Aunt Liji was back. Nanling did not continue to practice, but stopped and looked at the door. Well, although he is in a good state of mind, he is still a young man with blood and vigor. Aunt Liji changed into such a coquettish body, and he also wanted to take a closer look. It's not that I have any unreasonable thoughts, I just think it's beautiful, what's wrong? However, what stunned him was that the person who pushed the door in was a cat, or rather, it was Liji's top human head embedded in a cat's body. She changed into a prosthetic body with a black cat's body. Good guy, Nanling exclaimed in his heart, good guy, can you play like this? It must be said that although the cat with a human head looks weird no matter how you look at it, it still feels a little cute after looking at it for a while. What are you looking at? Haven't you seen a kitten before? Liji was obviously in a bad mood. She was suddenly transformed from a beautiful woman with a curvy figure into a mascot. She was in a very different mood. Nanling asked curiously, where is your body? Liji walked in with a heavy look on her face. She wanted to jump onto the bed and mess around. Unexpectedly, she miscalculated the angle of force, or there was something wrong with the prosthesis. She didn't jump high enough and hit the edge of the bed. Bang! She rolled onto the ground. Damn it! She was so angry that she looked like she was going to tear the bed apart. Nanling hurried in to protect his bed, then reached out and pinched the back of the neck of this human-headed cat and lifted it up and shook it. It's really cute. Liji rolled her eyes in annoyance, and then said, you couldn't bring the big sister body you liked with you because it was for work. Now when I go home after get off work, people see that I am bald and pitiful, so they gave me a black cat prosthesis to use as a means of transportation. Nanling tried to hold back his laughter, covered his mouth and said, "Then your company is quite humane." Li Ji said, "Okay, don't bother me now. I have to study and work hard to make money, and then buy myself a body that matches this head." Nanling could only wish her good luck. Then he practiced boxing and kicking in the alley again. He could feel that LV4 was not the end point that his body could reach. At the same time, he was relieved that this kind of boxing and kicking kung fu could not be controlled by the intelligence core. The intelligence core could only control energy, but could not directly bypass his brain to control his flesh and blood body. This made Nanling practice more seriously and focused, because he felt that this was the power that belonged to him completely. At this time, Li Ji, who was studying materials online, turned her head and looked at her and said, "Why don't you go to work with me tomorrow? There is a physical training ground next to me that provides all kinds of equipment training. This will be more effective than practicing randomly by yourself like you." Nanling felt that this seemed to be the truth, so she just nodded in agreement, but did not stop. Chapter 29. A life of increasing financial scarcity. The training ground recommended by Aunt Li Ji was very good. When Nanling went there the next day, he was very satisfied. More importantly, the fee was the same as in the virtual community, 2 Lingzhu points per hour, but there were still few people. This surprised Nanling, and he also felt that facing the impact of the virtual economy, these physical stores were really difficult to do. He asked for a cold weapon training room here and decided to practice first. There was no rush for work, anyway, he was allowed to arrange his own time, as long as the monthly workload could meet the standard. Nanling felt that there must be something wrong with his body. He came to this row of weapon racks, all of which were ancient cold weapons. Cold weapons are not unpopular in this era, because people who practice the path like to use this kind of weapons. He did not rush to buy the corresponding basic skills, but picked up those cold weapons one by one to try them out. First, he picked up a knife, which felt very smooth to use, and he had the urge to dance at the time. Nanling spent 100 Lingzhu points to buy the basics of sword skills at the time, and then danced. His idea was right. Muscle memory did exist. After performing a set of basic sword skills, he was evaluated as sword skills LV2 on the spot. He frowned, thinking it was a big low. His fighting skills were LV3 at first, and he was now LV5 after practicing for a while at night. How come his sword skills were only LV2? He felt that it was pretty good. However, he did not delve into it, but changed the sword again. At this moment, he immediately felt that it made sense that the sword skills were only LV2, because the moment he held the sword, he felt a sudden throbbing in his body. Without saying anything, he spent another 100 Lingzhu points to buy the basic sword skills. After he finished performing the sword skills once, the system directly gave him an LV3 evaluation. Then he did not stop, because his body, his muscles, and his genes seemed to have a strong desire to express themselves. After performing the sword skills for the second time, there were many inexplicable changes based on the basic sword skills, and his sword skills were directly upgraded to LV4. After practicing again, his swordsmanship changed again. In a trance, he seemed to see a ball of fire burning, and he vaguely felt that a hidden power in his body was awakening. When he woke up, he found that his swordsmanship had reached LV7, and he also had LV1 fire control. He was silent. There was indeed something wrong with his life experience. What was added to this body? And how could he, with such a talent, end up in Chenyuan 06 and become an orphan? He thought about it and put down the sword in his hand, and then tried other weapons. The sword matches his fire attribute talent in his body, so there must be a cold weapon that matches his current best wind attribute talent. With previous experience, he tried twice and then grabbed a long spear. The spear, this is another weapon that he was infused with talent. When he held the spear, he felt like he was holding an extension of his limbs, and then shook his hand to make a gum flower, and even without exchanging the basic spear skills, he instinctively performed a somewhat intermittent spear routine. Spear skills LV4. Then Nanling chose to buy the basic gum technique without hesitation, and danced with it. A gust of wind danced in front of him. His gun brought up the wind, and his body seemed to be able to blend into the wind. He danced with the gun, as graceful as a flying goose. Gun technique LV6. Nanling took a breath, his eyes were extremely bright, and then he quickly searched for gun techniques through the intelligence core, and at first glance he saw a gun technique. Whim contract. Worth 10,000 spiritual baht points, it is a gun technique released by the Feng family in the Fenyu. It is said that it is a gun technique that can be used with wind attribute spiritual power, which is a special combat skill for practitioners. Nanling just made a lot of money, and now he doesn't frown when spending money. The moves in wind contract quickly flowed through his mind, and then he began to perform them from slow to fast. The wind attribute spiritual power that had been transformed into the spiritual power of Chuanfengju in his body was also moved along with it, making the tip of the gum make a kai 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 sound of tearing silk when dancing. He felt the power. The power gathered on the tip of the spear was a form of use he had never thought of. It was a feeling that one shot could penetrate everything. No, not just that. He fired his spear once, and then fired continuously, like a storm, and then there was a feeling of incomparable speed. This spear technique is called Wind Pact, which is really closely related to the wind. At the same time, he also felt that his key refining technique Chuanfengju was really a perfect match for this Wind Pact, and the two complemented each other. It was just that the long spear he used for practice could not hold up. It suddenly turned into debris and dissipated in the air amidst his screams. He stopped in astonishment, and then felt his physical condition, and found that there were some obvious signs of overload in his meridians, and the spiritual energy stored in the spirit furnace was also consumed by more than 20%. Obviously, this wind pact is too awesome, it is really a practitioner's fighting skill. Nanling's heart was excited, this is the power he needs. It's just a pity that he doesn't know the specific power of this power, so he can only think about it and experience it carefully by himself. The only thing that was not so good was that he had lost the spears in the training ground. They had simply gone with the wind. He looked at the traces and found that there seemed to be no changes in the training room except for a little more dust. He just pretended not to know. Nanling whistled and walked out, using leisure to cover up his guilty conscience. He didn't know whether they hadn't noticed or the weapons were consumables. Anyway, no one bothered him after he left. Instead, he opened another room for shooting practice. Gunmanship, Spear, LV8, this is his highest level weapon skill at present, and it is also an improvement after he roughly practiced the wind contract. Unfortunately, the power of the wind contract seems to follow the wind control technique, and it can also promote the improvement of the wind control technique. Nanling has already felt this. His only problem now is that he doesn't have a suitable spear. Otherwise, with the wind contract to promote the wind control technique, his wind attribute control ability will definitely be upgraded to the next level soon. As for his practice in the shooting room, there is nothing much to say. After 4 hours of continuous shooting, various kinetic and energy guns were used, and finally the skill of comprehensive shooting was upgraded to level 4. It is obvious that Nanling's artificially adjusted blood has an extremely outstanding enhancement for wind guns and fire swords. This may be a genetic talent specially written before birth. It's a pity that he is now in the wind domain and can only access high-quality resources of wind attributes, so there is no need to hesitate in the choice of preference. Nanling looked at the level 1 fire control technique in the skill column summarized by the wisdom court for him, and his mood was quite complicated. However, this complexity is only for a while. He just needs to know what is most beneficial to him at the moment. Save money to buy a good spear as a weapon. Save enough money to infuse the body with spiritual power before the 10th level of key refining is perfected. And buy various spells and combat skills. It would be best if he could buy some hot weapons for self-defense. Anyway, he is short of money now, and he always feels that he is getting short of money. Chapter 30 An Opportunity 3 months later. Nanling was moving forward in the narrow mezzanine passage as usual, repairing the damaged energy pipeline. Because his work was going very smoothly, the company's maintenance department even equipped him with a ground maintenance vehicle, which allowed him to drive into the mezzanine from the maintenance entrances in various parts of the city and find that damaged location nearby. At this time, he found the problem, returned to the maintenance vehicle to get the spare parts and was about to go back to replace them. Suddenly, his ears moved, and he detected a hint of something wrong in his gaseous perception that never stopped. He put down the spare parts without any hesitation and then disappeared on the spot. This is the effect of the refraction technique after it was perfected, making him seem to be invisible directly. Of course, this is just refracting light, and it has no other use except to hide from optical detectors. After he disappeared on the spot, he directly turned on the fixed channel communication, and then said, "Come quickly, the goods are shipped." Then he quietly went to the place where he sensed the abnormality, and saw 2 people hiding behind a device in the shadow of that corner, who were a little anxious. "It's all your fault. We took the wrong road. Could the fat sheep have already finished his business and left? The passage in this mezzanine is so complicated. If you know the way, you can lead the way. At least I took us to the place. Speaking of which, are there really fat sheep here? I heard that many of the brothers who came to look for fat sheep recently have not returned. Is there any problem? You think too much. Since the people above are willing to send more people down, they must have a certain defensive force. Those people are probably unlucky. We are definitely not that unlucky. Nanling listened for a while and then told them clearly that they were unlucky. He would not do anything to these two scums himself, but just observed secretly from the side. Just when they were waiting anxiously, suddenly, a slightly heavy footsteps came from the side. Come in. Someone whispered. Nanling retreated to the side with confidence. A moment later, a female sheriff with a thin waist, plump buttocks and proud and firm body walked here quickly in a frightening uniform. She said coldly, "You scumbags from the lower class, you are here to make trouble again." She raised the stun gun in her hand and shot at the two scumbags from the lower class. One of them was shot on the spot, and the other did not hesitate to block his companion in front of him, then turned around and ran. However, he had only run 2 steps when he saw the female sheriff grabbed his companion who was incapable of movement and threw him hard. It was so miserable. The two of them collided with each other, and then fell to the ground with blood on their heads. Obviously, the scumbags from the lower class who had only undergone some limited and inferior body modifications could not resist the domineering female sheriff at all. Nanling then walked out of the shadows, high-fived the female sheriff and said, "Well done, Aunt Liji." The female sheriff was Liji. She proudly puffed out her chest and said, "I told you a long time ago, don't call me aunt or anything like that. I'm so young and beautiful now, but you call me old." Nanling just shook her head and said, "Okay, Aunt Liji, take the people back quickly, but there are 2,000 Lingzhu points." Liji nodded, with a greedy look in her eyes and said, "Thanks to you, you actually came up with such a good idea. You don't know how envious my colleagues were when I was promoted from a security commissioner to a security officer in 3 months because of my accumulated merits." Nanling interrupted her bragging and told her to take the people away quickly and not to interfere with his work. Liji then leisurely dragged the 2 guys who had fainted away. She would take the 2 people back to the security bureau to report, and every lower-level person who disturbed the order in the mezzanine could get a bounty of 1,000 Lingzhu points. This is a bounty offered by the Public Security Bureau. Not only does it come with a bonus, but it also comes with a credit calculation. During these 3 months, Liji and Nanling worked together to hook out more than a dozen unlucky people from the lower-level district who attempted to launch a sneak attack. As a result, Nanling could complete his bounty peacefully, and Liji could catch people and collect the bounty and credit. This is a win-win situation, but no one can say anything. No, those lucky people from the lower-level district who were arrested and locked up can still eat their prison food in peace, and no longer have to worry about having a meal. This is a win-win-win situation, a win-win situation. Nanling picked up his spare parts again, and the whole person floated up, and then suddenly started in this small space like a jet plane, and rushed to the target location. The work clothes with anti-gravity function and his wind skills gave him a very fast and agile flying ability. This flying speed is absolutely enough at least inside the space station and in the atmospheric environment, and it also made his recent work much more efficient. Even because of his performance during this period, he is a very famous person in the maintenance department. Of course, work is work, and his current 7th level cultivation indicates the most important achievement in the past 3 months. This is not only an improvement in cultivation, but also means that the physical trauma caused by radiation has finally healed completely. And the various spells and combat skills accumulated in the past 3 months have made all the preparations for his rapid improvement in the future. After completing his work for the day again, and another 3,000 Lingzhu points were credited to his account, he returned to the maintenance car in a good mood and prepared to go home. However, at this time, he received an unexpected communication request. He answered it somewhat unexpectedly, and the image of an old man with grey hair and beard appeared on his retina. "Boss, are you looking for me?" He knew Lao Ding, the head of the maintenance department. Old Dim replied, "Xiaonan, how is your work lately?" Nanling responded politely, "Neither good nor bad. Now the fault points have been almost eliminated, and the energy pipeline in the mezzanine will soon be able to resume normal operation." Hearing this, Old Dim said happily, "You're right. If this set of energy pipelines can be restored to operation, you, little guy, will definitely be the credit. But in that case, the original high reward will be over, and your income level will drop significantly, right?" Nanling roughly knew what Old Dim wanted to talk to him about. He simply asked directly, "Boss, are you going to introduce me to a new job?" Lao Ding smiled and nodded. There is an outstation job with a good salary. Are you willing to go? Nanling shook his head and said, it must be dangerous, right? Lao Ding said, it is a little dangerous, but don't worry, this is Miss Yi's commission. I think you can still trust Miss Yi's credibility. Nanling was surprised to hear this and said, Miss Yi specifically asked for me? His mind instantly emerged with the stunning beauty with slightly parted red lips and a surprised face that he saw when he was lying on the porthole. For a moment, his imagination was full of thoughts. Unfortunately, Lao Ding had already broken his dream with a blunt statement. Don't be so self-indulgent. Miss Yi wants a skilled and reliable maintenance worker in our maintenance department. I have asked several other qualified people, but unfortunately they are not so adventurous. Nanling was speechless. It turned out that he was just a backup. Yes, because his reputation value of 95 is very reliable in the space station, the only flaw is that his qualifications are too shallow. However, this task did not seem to be mandatory. When no one else was willing to go out on the field, the task fell on him. He hesitated and asked, can you tell me what the task is specifically? Lao Ding said, Miss Yi's friend needs a reliable maintenance worker. I don't know what he will do, but I just know that he will have to go on a long journey and it will be dangerous. Of course, you'll get the benefits. Nanling was actually a little tempted by this, but he couldn't make a decision for a while. Lao Ding knew what he was thinking and said, talk it over with your family. This opportunity is rare. After all, Miss Yi's friend must not be a simple person. I can see that you are an ambitious little guy. While thanking him, Nanling ended the call. He couldn't help but feel a little worried. Although he didn't have a family, he had a guy to live with, and he had to discuss it. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 31. Take care. Nanling was a little confused when he went home. He didn't know how to tell Aunt Liji about this. Living together for these days, how should I put it, they really felt like family. But he felt that maybe separation was a matter of time. After all, for those of them who grew up in the lower class, the distance between them was too close. So close that they even had trust, a very dangerous trust. They didn't like to be tested by trust. Nanling knew it was time to separate. He had prepared himself mentally. When Liji came back, he would explain everything to her. He believed that she would understand. He waited for a while. Liji came back a little late today, about an hour later than usual. Nanling didn't care. He made himself some food and waited patiently. When the outer doors pushed open, his eyes also looked over, then he was surprised again. Because the one who came in was a top-notch beauty with a waist like a willow, wide hips and long legs. Well, it must be an artificial beauty. Because he saw that the beauty's head was still the one he was familiar with. Have you finally saved enough money to buy a body? He asked, and then said, no wonder you came back late, I went to get my skin color matched. The skin color of this new body is more weak-colored, and Liji's top hair, which was originally white, has now turned weak-colored. It must be that the skin color is not good. Liji held up her newly made hair and said, haha, this is a gift from someone. The performance is much better than the one used by the Public Security Bureau. More importantly, it is completely simulated. Do you want Auntie to let you enjoy it first? Nanling waved her hand with a look of disgust and said, no, I don't think I will love again in this life. That's right, under Liji's various operations, Nanling's desire for men and women has now been reduced to the limit. After all, artificial ones look much more perfect than natural ones. Nanling feels that his current mentality is just right for him to focus on cultivation, without worrying about being delayed by the goblin. Then he felt something was wrong, and he asked, was it given by someone else? Are you being kept by someone? Being able to give a prosthesis with excellent performance directly to someone, this must have been noticed by some big shot. Don't get me wrong, this is not a matter of color. For Liji, who only has one brain left, the other party should value her workability. A compartment suddenly opened up at Liji's neck, and then the body of the little black cat jumped down with her head on top. It squatted in front of Nanling in the posture of a kitten and said faintly, Xiaonan, I think it's time for us to say goodbye. Nanling. ... His line was taken away. Liji, the human-headed cat, continued faintly. But since you also came from the lower area, you should be able to understand my thoughts, right? Nanling could certainly understand that she didn't trust anyone except herself and seized every opportunity to climb up. At the same time, he was also touched in his heart. He felt Li Ji's escape. Obviously, she had the same reason as him. If they didn't say goodbye, they would have a dangerous trust. He sighed and nodded, saying, "I understand. Good luck to you, Aunt Li Ji." Li Ji's sadness was only for a moment, and then she started to make dirty jokes with Nanling again. "Hey, Aunt is leaving soon. Don't you really need Aunt to make you happy on this last night?" Nanling looked at the prosthetic body, which was like a headless corpse. Then he looked at Li Ji, who had a human head and a cat body, and it was like a scene from a horror movie. He complained, "Forget it, Aunt, we're too familiar with each other. I can't do it." Li Ji pouted and pretended to be hurt. Nanling asked again, "Are you leaving tomorrow?" Li Ji said, "Yes, I'm leaving tomorrow." After a pause, she looked at Nanling as if she was worried about what he was thinking, and then said, "Actually, they found me 2 days ago, and I made the decision today. I've already reported there today. To be honest, although it feels like some whimsical games played by young ladies, they offer too much, and they are nice people. I think it will be a good springboard." Nanling felt very complicated after hearing this. He immediately sent a message to his maintenance department boss, Lao Ding, using Zi. "I agree." Then he sighed. In comparison, he only hesitated for 2 or 3 hours before agreeing. It seems that he is more of a scumbag. Then he showed a bright smile and said, "Then, I wish Aunt Li Ji a bright future." At this time, Lao Ding's reply came. "I knew you wouldn't miss this opportunity, but if you want to be selected, you still have to take an interview. You can go directly to the airport for the interview tomorrow." Nanling was very calm after receiving the message, and Li Ji probably felt bad, so she put her head back on the prosthetic body of the beauty, and brought back a lot of food from outside the door. "Don't eat nutritional paste all the time, that kind of thing will ruin your taste. Come, Auntie bought you some good food." Nanling looked at the attentive Auntie Li Ji, and suddenly she didn't dare to tell the truth. What if the two of them really ended up in the same place? Wouldn't all these delicious food be taken back? Nanling thought stingily, and then said, "Since you are leaving, I will accept Lao Ding's invitation to go out on the field. The bounty in the mezzanine is not easy to deal with recently." Li Ji nodded and looked very relieved. She felt that it was a relief to see that Nanling had a follow-up path. Nothing beautiful happened that night, and they were not suitable for beauty. Nanling continued to practice and study as usual, while Li Ji also started to study online, contrary to her usual behavior. It was obvious that she finally came out of that confusion and stopped looking for excitement online. The next day, Li Ji woke up earlier than Nanling. She said, "I'm leaving. See you later if we're lucky." Nanling was washing up. He turned his head and looked at the beauty Li Ji and said, "See you later if we're lucky." Speaking of which, he always felt that Li Ji was cuter as a cat. He always felt that she was strong and powerful in the body of a beauty. After the beauty Li Ji left, Nanling sighed and started to pack his things. In fact, there were not many things, just some basic daily necessities. He only took a quarter of an hour to pack everything he could. From this, it can be seen that he never really thought of settling down here. With all the delicious food Li Ji gave him, he finally packed a big suitcase. After leaving, he didn't rush to apply for checkout. What if he didn't pass the interview? Anyway, I had paid half a year's rent before, and it wouldn't be returned if I refunded it now. He took his things, climbed onto his engineering vehicle, and headed to the airport. This engineering vehicle will return to the maintenance department by itself later. It is all controlled by AI. It can be regarded as the last favor given to him by Lao Ding. In fact, Nanling could see clearly that he and Li Ji were like catfish in their respective workplaces, disrupting the originally peaceful state there. They probably brought a lot of pressure to others, so they were given this opportunity. This was a deliberate attempt to send them away. But this is a good thing for ambitious people. Chapter 32a. Makeshift Team. Nanling dragged his luggage to the airport. According to the address sent by Lao Ding, he walked deep into the airport and passed through the parking areas of spacecraft. He felt a little scared. This place had passed the parking area for normal commercial ships. The parking area for military spacecraft was behind. But the address given by Lao Ding was correct. He pushed the suitcase and walked for another 20 minutes before he arrived at the target anchor point. However, he saw a spacecraft that was more beautiful than he could imagine. The ruby-like hull looked dreamy because it was coated with some kind of material that produced reflection. The huge body did not look bloated at all because of the beautiful lines. The hull was slightly flat, and from a distance it looked like a seductive red phantom light. He was already in the top secret area when he got here, and he had to have an identification code to enter. However, the identification code was not given to him. When he walked here, a floating automatic platform naturally stopped in front of him to pick him up. Obviously, his identity information had been reported. He stood on the floating platform and was soon taken to the bottom of the spacecraft. It was very busy here. Many cargo boxes were being continuously sent into the cabin of this spaceship from the conveyor belt. Did they come to Chinyuan 06 to purchase goods? Then his intelligence core also received the identification information of this spaceship. Zhuoxia hunting ship. Hunting ship, this is a new type of ship that has emerged recently. In fact, there are too many dangers in this starry sky. Ordinary spaceships always have huge risks when undertaking pioneering and exploration missions. Therefore, in order to satisfy the exploration desires of many second generations and ensure the safety of these guys who are looking for death, hunting ships were developed. Using the cost of building a main battleship to build a hunting ship with only 1/3 of the size and less than 1/5 of the firepower, this is simply an expensive toy specially prepared for those young masters and young ladies. Nanling could secretly complain about rich dog owners, but when he stood in front of the Zhuoxia hunting ship that was as beautiful as a work of art, he couldn't stop the envy in his heart. At this moment, a woman who was originally directing the goods to enter the warehouse came in front of him. This woman was tall and slightly voluptuous. She was wearing a tight-fitting outfit that had a sci-fi feel, and her round and slightly sturdy legs were also outlined. Her chest was full, unlike Aunt Liji, who seemed to have deliberately enlarged the size of this part. What was striking about her was her long ice blue hair, which was simply tied up and draped behind her back. Her broken bangs made her eyes seem to reflect the ice blue light. To be honest, this kind of figure is not perfect in this era, or it is flawed. It is just because of this that Nanling feels it is particularly valuable. This is a natural body, not a mechanical prosthesis. It is very friendly. Although the woman's expression was very cold and distant. "Hello, my boss said I'm needed here." He greeted her. He didn't like socializing, but at least he did better than most people in this era. The woman nodded slightly, came over and stretched out her hand to shake hands. Nanling was slightly stunned, then stretched out his hand and shook it lightly before letting go. The woman said, "My name is Mo. I'm the first officer, herald, exploration team leader, and guard captain of this spaceship. I used to supervise military supplies and logistics, but now I can finally get rid of this job." Nanling was stunned. He pointed at himself and showed a questioning look. The woman named Mo nodded affirmatively and said, "Yes, I have read your information. Although you came from the lower area of this space station, because of your previous performance of loyalty to duty in OB 7561, you have won the trust of Miss Yi. You are also on Miss Yi's special recommendation list. You are worthy of our attention and entrusted with important tasks." Mo was very straightforward in revealing the reason. Nanling was shocked by this straightforwardness, and then he immediately intuitively judged that he was really going to get together with Aunt Liji again. This is too simple, isn't it? But then he thought about it and suddenly felt pathetic. Because in the eyes of these young ladies in front of them, their world can be very simple, and there is no need to consider any intrigues. Intrigues are just the struggles of small people, that's all. Nanling didn't have so many feelings. He just said with embarrassment, "But I'm in charge of such an important job as logistics when I first arrived. I'm a little nervous." Mo looked calm, reached out and patted his shoulder and said, "Don't underestimate yourself, you have to believe in your ability. Besides, the Zhuoxia is short of manpower now, and I'm not really asking you to take charge of everything. Just be my assistant." As soon as the voice fell, his intelligence core displayed a line of text on his retina. The intelligence system of the Zhuoxia hunting ship requests access. Access successful. The artificial intelligence Zhuoxia has opened the user to the use of logistics robots and other facilities. Nanling didn't know whether to laugh or cry. How did he get such an important responsibility? This is completely forced. And since there is artificial intelligence to help deal with it, the workload is indeed not large, but it is necessary to check the records when the materials are put into the warehouse. But forget it, it's already forced, he can only operate it. A string of goods information has been swiped on his retina, and he immediately asked the intelligence core to process and classify it. At the same time, the warehouse information of the ship has been unfolded in front of him. He looked at the folding shelves in the warehouse, and the voice of the dog owner in his heart became louder and louder. These folding shells can hold 8 times the capacity of their own volume. That is to say, if this warehouse is full, it can hold 8 times the things. The abundance of materials can be imagined. He hurriedly joined in, directly controlling the logistics robot to put them into the warehouse one by one, and then mark the information. In general, his job is not difficult for him, especially with the help of the smart core. Seeing this, Mo finally showed a relieved look, although it was still cold. She said, "We really didn't misjudge you, you did a good job." Nanling's mind was quickly checking the incoming materials. The smart core could help him identify them, but since he did this, he naturally had to be more responsible. Hearing Mo's words, his eyes did not change, but he hurriedly said, "Thank you Miss Mo for your appreciation, but I still think this is too hasty." "Wait, how come there are even armor parts in these supplies? Where is the mechanic on the ship? I will send these armor and weapons to him." Mo said indifferently, "Yes, there is still a lack of a mechanic. I can only take over temporarily before recruiting someone. It seems that we need to recruit another assistant." That expression clearly said, "Why don't you just do a part-time job?" Nanling was speechless and choked. He stared at the other party blankly and asked, "This Zooxia is a very outstanding spacecraft. You and the captain should have many trusted subordinates. Why?" He still felt that he was not suitable for directly contacting such an important job. This is the same as the fact that people are afraid of talking about deep things when they are not familiar with each other. Mo's face turned cold and said, "There is no need to discuss this matter. Just do your own thing." Then he stopped talking and just kept assigning tasks to Nanling. Nanling stared blankly at this natural beauty with a delicate face and left, and then showed a look of not knowing whether to laugh or cry. He was scolded, but he couldn't get angry at all. It was such a high-end and classy spaceship, why did it feel like a makeshift team? Chapter 33 Giving Too Much. That night, Nanling, who had been busy all day, finally had time to rest. Ms. Mo was very busy. After she assigned tasks to Nanling and confirmed that he was competent, she rushed to do other things. It can be seen that she was under a lot of pressure and had to bear a lot. After Nanling arranged all the materials and closed the warehouse door, he realized something very important. Where would he sleep tonight? He was entangled and quickly used his intelligence core to search for information that might have been overlooked before. After a lot of effort, he found a formal employment contract with an annual salary of 120,000 Lingzhu points, which was definitely a high salary. Nanling only earned a little over 60,000 Lingzhu points in the past 3 months, and that was with the bounty. However, after he had a good time for the first few days, other people also reacted, and the high-reward mezzanine maintenance work quickly became a hot commodity. This was also an important reason why he decided to change his environment. If he worked normally without the bounty, according to calculations, he would probably only earn about 60,000 to 70,000 Lingzhu points a year, which was almost half of the contract. High salary, stable, and it would be even better if it could be long-term. Nanling was now suddenly a little worried that the captain's daughter would be short-lived. Wouldn't he lose out? While worrying about gains and losses, he continued to look for information. No, there is no arrangement for his residence at all. This is very annoying. Is he going to sleep in the warehouse? It's not impossible. Nanling found that he was still connected to the AI of Zooxia, so he asked, "Where do I live?" That, Zooxia, the AI of Zooxia, actually made a hesitant sound. Is this AI reliable? Nanling had a bad feeling. As a result, it hesitated for 2 or 3 seconds and said, "I have opened the permission for Mr. Nan to choose a room. Please choose a suitable room by yourself." Nanling. ... He didn't expect that he would encounter such an amateur thing on such an advanced ship. What level of AI is this, and it can actually maintain the operation of this spacecraft? He said speechlessly, "Your authorization should be approved by the captain or at least Ms. Mo, right?" Zooxia said aggrievedly. "But let him choose is what the captain said." Nanling. ... Well, if that's the case, it's probably because the captain is not particular about details. Nanling put his mind back and thought that this was not bad, at least he could choose a room that suits him. The rooms that he could choose on the Zooxia were marked out. He looked at the structure one by one and found that these rooms were actually almost the same. And because he was too lazy to socialize with others, he thought about placing the room closer to his work area. He didn't think much about it and found a room that was closest to the warehouse. This room is not good strictly speaking. It is almost located in the bottom cabin of the spacecraft. Being away from the bridge also means being away from the power center of this spacecraft. This is obviously not a good place for those who were desperately trying to climb up, but for Nan Lin, this is ideal. He walked a few steps with the box and arrived at the place. It felt like looking at the doorman of the warehouse. He pushed the door open and went in. It was clean and empty. This was natural. He had to buy all the daily necessities himself. What satisfied him was that the space in this room was quite good, 200 square meters. Perhaps the designer of the spaceship layout simply put some unused space in this room. There was an independent bathroom, and he could even make his own kitchen. If he worked hard, it would definitely be fully equipped. There were also floor-to-ceiling windows that could adjust the transparency freely. At this time, he could see the busy port, although it was the view from the bottom of the spaceship. Nan Ling was happy. He put his suitcase on the ground, stretched out his hand and gently moved his fingers like a symphony conductor, letting everything in the box fly out, and then arranged it according to his wishes. This was to integrate the training of wind control into every detail of life. Although his wind control level was still LV8, he felt that he was not far from breaking through this level. A person, quietly staying in a corner and developing in a wretched way, there was no rhythm that made him feel more comfortable than this. However, just when he was happily enjoying his life alone, there was a fierce knock on the door. Nan Ling was a little surprised. Who had come to see him at this time? He stood up and was about to go to the door, but suddenly an alarm sounded in the room. Alarm! Alarm! The cabin access control is being hacked. The next moment, the door opened by itself. Nan Ling trembled, and then he saw the stunning beauty appear at the door. Oh, it was the stunning Aunt Liji. At this time, Aunt Liji's prosthetic body had put on a tight uniform with a strong sense of technology, which completely outlined her perfect figure. But in Nan Ling's eyes, this overly perfect figure was not attractive at all. He just felt very panicked. He didn't expect to be exposed by Liji so quickly. But after all, he had been in the lower class, so he immediately put on a surprised expression and said, "Aunt Liji, why are you here too?" That innocent and pure look really made Liji angry and helpless. She asked suspiciously, "You really don't know I'm here?" Nan Ling said, "I really don't know. Old Dim didn't tell me anything. I just came here with my luggage this morning. I didn't expect to see you here again." To some extent, it was the truth. After all, although he guessed it, he just had to pretend to be stupid. Liji looked at him suspiciously and said, "Really don't know? Why do I feel that with your IQ, you must have guessed it a long time ago." She suddenly covered her chest and said with an ugly face, "Damn it, I actually bought so many food for you." Nan Ling immediately took out all the things and handed them to her and said, "Then I will give them back to you." Liji looked at him blankly, her eyes gradually became cold, and then suddenly headshot. The head really shot out. The connection between her neck and chest was opened, and the body of the little black bat jumped out with her head against her head, and rushed to Nan Ling's face. Nan Ling reacted, but at this time he could only squat with his head in his hands to defend himself. The lazy cat pounced on his head and pulled his hair hard, saying angrily, "If I could eat, I would have eaten it all by you long ago. I also want to eat delicious food, but now I can only taste it. Are you mocking me for not having a body? Stop it." Nan Ling knew that he was in the wrong, so he just let her vent on him. Ahem. At this moment, a dry cough sounded at the door. Lazy Cat and Nan Ling both stopped and looked at the door in confusion. But they saw the first mate of the zooxia, Ms. Mo, standing there helplessly. She came here because she received an intrusion alarm, and then thought that her newly recruited intelligence officer was a fierce woman who couldn't stand loneliness, so she came to attack the poor handsome boy. But after coming here, she found that the two were just joking, and they were a bit like family. She shook her head and said, "You seem to have a good relationship. Do you want me to move you to the same room?" The two said in unison, "No." On the point of separation, they still reached a tacit consensus. The reason has been mentioned before. They are not people who are willing to trust easily. Keeping a distance will make them feel more comfortable. Ms. Mo shook her head helplessly again. She felt that they were really awkward. Then she said to the two of them, "Since you were both here, I will arrange tomorrow's work. Ms. Liji, you're already the intelligence officer of the zooxia because of your outstanding work ability. Please help screen the personnel to be recruited tomorrow. And Mr. Nan Lin, today's logistics supplies have arrived. I would like to ask you to receive and sort out the remaining weapons and equipment tomorrow." Nan Lin couldn't help but say, "But Ms. Mo, is it appropriate for me to manage the arsenal and the material warehouse alone?" Mo's face, which had always been tense, finally showed a helpless look and said, This is something that can't be helped. We really can't recruit the right people. You're already the best talents we can recruit. Tomorrow we will have to start recruiting crew members in the lower area, and that will be troublesome. Nanling suddenly felt that he had fallen into a big trouble. But there was no way. Who asked them to pay too much salary? Chapter 34. Worried. The next morning, Nanling packed up and started working. He was also responsible for receiving the goods and sorting out the arsenal. Although there were 30 logistics robots to assist, the workload was still very heavy. In fact, it was equivalent to him controlling 30 robots to do things alone. That is, it was only possible to do this with the intelligence core installed. From this point of view, if there were enough robots to assist, Nanling could manage the arsenal and the regular supply warehouse alone. And he was just a little busy now, and he would be able to manage it very easily when everything was on track. However, at this time, he received a call from Li Ji. Xiaonan, I think the situation is not good. Nanling was directing the robots to arrange and transport in the armory, and she was able to respond distractedly. What's wrong? Is recruiting going well? Li Ji said. There are many applicants, but they are all bad people. Nanling asked curiously. Aunt Li Ji, you're an old man in this space station. You should be able to tell which people are reliable and which are not, right? Just scream those who you think are reliable. Li Ji sighed. If that's the case, all those people will be screened out. Speaking of which, the most correct way to use these people is like Fengzi Operation Company, throwing them to a place completely isolated from the outside world, and everything they need is controlled by them, so naturally there is no need to worry about causing trouble. Now that this group of bad people who have no sense of order are put on such a good ship, I can already imagine how chaotic it will be in the future. Nanling asked curiously. Do you know where Ms. Mo and our captain came from? Why don't they have their own people around them? Li Ji sighed heavily again. 2 runaway young ladies. I have met the captain once. She is a very lively and lovely girl. Her name is Fanny, Miss Fanny. And the first mate, Ms. Mo, should have a good family background, but she is a follower of Miss Fanny. I heard about it when I came here. When the 2 of them came to Chenyuan 06 on this spaceship, they were the only 2 living people on the whole ship. This is simply the way the eldest daughter of a runaway family wants to experience life. Nanling felt extremely insecure at the time. He quickly sent a message to his direct superior, Ms. Mo, saying, I need some armed robots to guard the warehouse. Mo replied directly, there is no such thing. If you need it, you can modify it yourself with the arsenal equipment. The robots in this ship are all applicable to all fields. Nanling said, then I want to modify the blueprint. Mo said, I have opened the exchange authority for you. Spend Lingzhu points to buy it. I will give you a 50% discount. It's not given directly. Nanling was a little disappointed. He looked at the computing power of the intelligent core, which had been used by 40% so far. It seemed that there was still a lot of room, so he added an extra command. The next moment, Zifn connected with AI Xiaoxia, and he got a lot of prices for weapon equipment blueprints. These prices showed the original price and the half-price privilege given to him by Mo. He took a look. It seemed very cheap. Why did it feel like it was much cheaper than buying it outside? He knew the prices of some of the blueprints. After all, he had been a repairman for so long and had browsed a lot of relevant information. But the blueprints that appeared in front of him now were almost only 20% of the outside price. Nanling suddenly didn't understand what Mo said about half price. Then he remembered what he had seen and heard in the White Feather Core, and understood what was going on. You are so righteous. Nanling immediately put aside the slight unhappiness before, and now he just felt that the 2 ladies were so wonderful, and he had to hold their thighs tightly. This platform was very important to him, and he suddenly found that he could not stand the bad people who were about to enter this spaceship. They would mess up this platform. So he burst out with endless enthusiasm and wanted to protect this platform well. He glanced at the robot modification blueprints and related equipment blueprints and immediately chose to exchange them. The intelligence core loads that blueprint, and then it can immediately apply what it has learned. It is so unreasonable. And only half an hour later, Nanling had already used the materials in the arsenal to transform the 4 logistics robots into armed robots. The main thing is to transform the energy core of the robot so that it can adapt to a certain degree of weapon system. At the same time, it is also necessary to install external armor plates for protection and power amplification, otherwise its body will not appear very strong. The 4 logistics robots that originally looked very slender immediately became majestic and majestic. Under Nanling's instructions, they all walked out, 2 on each side, and directly blocked this section of the cabin. Then Nanling sent a message to Mo again. Miss Mo, I'm going to use armed robots to block the warehouse cabin section. Please set the authorization. Mo paused for a while before saying, You're really quick. You can just call me Mo in the future, okay? The authorization has been given to you. I know your intention to do this. Do a good job and I will give you a raise. Nanling didn't feel any waves in her heart after hearing this. After all, it sounded like a pie in the sky. However, not long after, along with the arrival of the authorization information, Nanling saw that the salary amount on his employment contract suddenly increased by 30%. That is, it became an annual salary of 156,000 link baht points. Isn't this too straightforward? Nanling was so touched that he quickly said, Miss Mo, I think there should be armed robots patrolling and maintaining law and order in other parts of the ship. Mo replied, No need. Fanny doesn't like these. If she sees them, she might dismantle your robots directly. You just need to do some things to protect the most important supplies. In fact, I know that these people are unreliable, but there is nothing I can do. Nanling felt the pain of Mo being caught in the middle. On the one hand, it was the unrealistic decision made by the willful eldest lady, and on the other hand, it was necessary to try to make this unrealistic decision practical. She must be very anxious. Nanling hesitated when he heard this. He shouldn't have said anything, but after all, he liked this platform too much and didn't want to see it collapse easily. So he suggested, Since Miss Fanny and Miss Yi have a good relationship, why don't you ask Miss Yi for some reliable people? Mo shook his head and said, Miss Yi has helped a lot. You're recommended and arranged by Miss Yi. Her own subordinates are all in the Fennu military, and it is not appropriate for them to give up their military positions to help us. Nanling understood, but he was a little confused and asked, Those who have military positions are fine, but what about those who don't have military positions? Mo asked, What do you mean? Nanling said, I just want to ask, the soldiers of the White Feather Corps can't be lifelong, right? Where do those who retire go? Even if the benefits are good, I think there are always some days that are not satisfactory, right? Mo suddenly came to her senses, and she finally showed a hint of joy and said, Your idea is very good, and it will definitely get the full support of Miss Fenyi. The communication ended, and Mo obviously went to work. Nanling breathed a sigh of relief. This way, at least there will be more reliable people. The solution he gave was not that good, but these ladies were used to the upper-class life, and they probably didn't expect there was such a group. Chapter 35 The Voice That Makes You Fall. Nanling continued his work, but the messy sounds began to fill the corridor of the spacecraft, and the foul language was endless, which made Nanling very unhappy. It was not that he could not bear to hear these, but he felt the laxity revealed in these sounds, which he did not want to see. The prospects were worrying. He took time out of his busy schedule and started making the robots armor again. He knew very well that in order to make these bad guys obedient, they must first have enough deterrence. It was not enough to just give money, which would only stimulate their greed. So Nanling began to transform his logistics robot. Mo authorized him, but did not say how much he authorized him. He made full use of this authorization and continued to make robot armor and weapons with the materials filled in the arsenal. The rest of the supply work was completed in half a day, and in the remaining half a day he put all the computing power of the Zivng Intelligent Core on the production of robot armor, and transformed all his 30 logistics robots. The people from the lower district who boarded the ship wandered around curiously on this spacecraft. This advanced spacecraft undoubtedly made them feel excited. However, they did not have the permission to go to the area near the bridge on the top floor. That was also where Miss Fanny and Mo lived, and Li Ji's room was also placed there. It was not bad for the 3 girls to be together. Nanling felt that Grandma Li Ji should be able to take good care of the 2 girls. Another peaceful place was Nanling. Once the armed robot was stationed at the entrance of the passage, everything was peaceful immediately, and those people would not come to cause trouble consciously. Nanling breathed a sigh of relief. Just when he thought there would be no trouble for the time being, he suddenly received another call from Li Ji. Help me think of a way quickly. The young lady suddenly had a sudden idea and wanted to use her personal charm to subdue these bad guys. Now she is ready to gather everyone. As soon as the voice fell, Nanling heard a broadcast in the room. Everyone, please gather in the restaurant in half an hour. The captain has something to say. Nanling sighed expressionlessly and said, Isn't she afraid of being turned into a flannel ball by these scumbags? He couldn't help but say a swear word. This Miss Fanny is quite unreliable in a whimsical way. He asked, "What do you want me to do?" Li Ji said, "Make sure our naive customer is safe. After all, it's hard for anyone to pay us such a high salary." As expected of Aunt Li Ji, her ideas in this regard coincided with Nanling's. He said, "Send me the route that the eldest lady takes to the restaurant. Isn't it just to deal with the leader's inspection? What's the big deal?" He knows it well. Li Ji is also a smart person. She immediately understood what Nanling meant. This is to stagger the route of the eldest lady with the routes of others. She said, "That crazy girl has one idea after another all day long, and I can't judge, so let's bring Mo in to discuss. She is the follower of the eldest lady and will definitely be able to have a certain degree of influence." Nanling responded, and at the same time he ordered all his logistics robots to change their clothes. Mo's communication was also pulled in. When she saw the other two people, she said, "I understand your concerns, but it's only a little dangerous this time. Tomorrow, the former members of the White Feather Corps arranged by Miss Yu will join us." Nanling said, "Even so, we can't be careless. Although there is no need to worry about Miss Fanny's safety, her prestige cannot be hit." Mo listened and thought about it seriously, then agreed, "You're right, so what are you going to do?" Nanling said, "First of all, Miss Mo needs to be able to determine the route that the young lady takes to the restaurant, and we need AI Shiaxia to cooperate with us to restrict the activity space of those people. It's too dangerous to let them run around like that." Mo agreed immediately after listening, "Mature words. In fact, I have deliberately arranged their residence in an area. I only need Shiaxia to close some gates in the area to complete the restriction, and it can also limit their route to the restaurant." "I understand what you mean. What are you going to arrange on their way to the restaurant?" Nanling nodded, then sent out what he saw in front of him. 30 robots armed to the teeth were neatly arranged on both sides of him, full of a strong sense of oppression. Mo thought. Intimidation tactics. It makes sense. Let Fanny show her kindness, and let us prepare to show our power. Give me the control of these robots first, and I will arrange the deployment. Nanling reminded. Leave at least 4 for me, the warehouse compartment cannot be without protection. Mo said readily. There is a robot production line in the logistics area, you can do the production yourself, the authorization is given to you. Her trust in Nanling has obviously increased again. In fact, he and Li Ji received a lot of trust when they joined the company, which is the benefit of high reputation. Under this preconceived trust, coupled with the fact that both of them are very capable, this naturally makes the overwhelmed Mo trust them more naturally. Nanling's robots have all left, leaving only 4 for him to look after the house. Then, according to the newly obtained authorization, he opened the production line next to the warehouse area. Slim and versatile robots were quickly assembled on the assembly line and then walked off the assembly line. The newly offline robots were not idle either, but went directly to the arsenal to make armor plate weapons. Originally, he had 30 logistics robots, and now 26 were called away by Mo, so he simply set an order for 100. At the same time, the newly offline robots were also sent to the arsenal for arming preparation. His requirement for his logistics robots was that they could be equipped and become combat robots at any time. At this moment, his intelligence core received a picture. On both sides of a passage leading to the restaurant, armed robots with live ammunition stood majestically on both sides. Each robot had a Scarlet optical scanning device on its head, which was glowing red at this time, constantly locking and scanning everyone who passed in front of them. The new employees who were originally very noisy immediately restrained their unrestrained temperaments when walking among them, and each one was as obedient as a quail. Deterrence by force, at least it seems to be working well now. Li Ji's voice rang out. The effect is good. Mo and I will accompany the eldest lady through another passage. When will you come, Shonen? Nanling looked embarrassed. He said, "Can I not go?" At this time, Mo's voice rang out. Just this time, Fanny will not make a mistake in the number of her employees. Indeed, a glance at the smart core can help her count all the people, and even know who is cheating. Nanling stood up helplessly and said, "Okay, I'm coming." At this time, Mo said, "It's just right. You can come in through the same route as them and blend in with them." Nanling. ... He couldn't help but roll his eyes at Mo. Mo couldn't see his eyes, but said in a cold voice, "Add money." Nanling responded happily. "Don't worry, I will definitely help you keep an eye on these people." There was no way, this woman was too gentle, he felt that he was going to fall. Chapter 36. being circled. Nanling never thought that he would be an undercover among the scum of the lower class area one day. He looked so harmless that he obviously didn't fit in with the scum of the lower class area. He walked all the way to the corridor full of armed robots. He seemed to be as miserable as the people around him, but his retina received greetings from the robots. Sir. Wherever he passed, the robots raised their heads and chest visibly, just like guards waiting for his inspection. Nanling was speechless. The AI level of these robots was not low. Speaking of which, have people in this era never considered the consequences of AI out of control? Nanling asked the smart core to search in the information database at the time. The results surprised him. It would only take a while to find the information, but this time he walked more than 10 meters away, but there was still no result. Nanling looked at the smart core still searching, and suddenly realized something, and decisively cancelled the search. He realized a serious problem. He felt that any civilization that has developed to the current level of human beings should not ignore the topic of intelligent machine crisis. Even if it has never happened, it should be discussed in the process of development. As for the fact that no information can be retrieved online, Nanling can only think of two possibilities. First, someone deliberately deleted and covered up the relevant content. Second, the entire human civilization lives in an information cocoon. Nanling tends to the first one, because the second one is a bit too scary. He doesn't dare to imagine how terrible it would be to even information cocoon for the thinking of the entire human civilization. On the contrary, the first one sounds terrible, and in Nanling's eyes, it is the most likely. Because humans in this era have two evolutionary routes. First, the physical body of most people is mechanically transformed, and then slowly all mechanized, and finally becomes mechanical life and further digital life. Second, it is the evolution of their own physical body. There are many schools, but the most popular one is the cultivation of immortals. Nanling dares to bet that in a world with such a long history of human civilization, immortals may have been achieved long ago, and digital life is certainly not lacking. The proposition of intelligent crisis is actually closely related to digital life, so it is natural for them to choose to delete relevant information. Nanling stopped searching because he didn't want to attract the attention of these beings. It would be easy for such beings to crush him to death. This conjecture made him feel a little depressed, and this depressed feeling also brought back the mood of his early years in the lower class. In addition, he deliberately picked out a piece of clothing that he was reluctant to throw away, which made him look like a teenager who was hanging out in the lower class trying to dress himself up. There were already quite a few people in the restaurant, all of them were big and strong. It was common that many parts of their bodies had been replaced with machines. It was extremely rare for him to have all his arms and legs. He couldn't help but complain in the small group of 3 people. I'm an undercover like this, and I don't fit in with these people. Mo probably thought it was a bit too much, so he said, just this time, be a backup for Fana later, don't let it be a dull occasion, I will give you an extra 10,000 Lingzhu points. Nanling praised. Miss Mo, you are really the most gentle and beautiful person in the world, I love you to death. Mo. ... She couldn't say anything. Nanling didn't think his words were corny, his love for Miss Mo was genuine. Money gave him motivation, but since he was going to carry out a secret mission, he couldn't be too conspicuous. So he looked around, found a corner where no one was around, and sat down, ready to wait for an opportunity. But then something slapped his face. He had just said that he didn't fit in with these people. As a result, as soon as he sat down in the corner, someone sat down next to him. An old man with a scruffy beard patted Nanling's shoulder affectionately and said, "Good brother, I finally found you. People like you will come here to join in the fun." Nanling resisted the urge to throw the old man over his shoulder, turned his head and glared at him, then asked Zhi to do a facial recognition. He had no impression of this old man at all. Zhi was Zhi, and the old man's identity information immediately appeared in front of him. As a result, he was surprised and said, "Lao Mu." Lao Mu was very happy. He said, "Haha, I'm glad you still recognize me. Thanks to you for saving me, I even saw my mother coming to pick me up that time." As he said that, someone next to him greeted him. Lao Mu said without any hesitation, "Come quickly, he is the 5th one among us, and the benefactor who saved my life." So 4 strong men with strong body odor immediately sat around Nanling, making him almost suffocated in the middle. He quickly turned on his air purification technique to adjust the composition of the surrounding air so that he could breathe relatively fresh air. However, a person next to him suddenly took a deep breath and said in surprise, "You smell really good. I heard that the ladies in the upper class area all have body odor." Nanling's face turned pale and he felt that he had met a pervert. And as luck would have it, his three-person group communication was always open, and the situation here was fully received by the other two. The old witch Lychee was already laughing with gloating. Oh, I didn't expect it. I feel like I'm going to laugh out my abdominal muscles even though I have only a brain left. This is so funny. Mo didn't react much. After all, she has always been such a cold woman. As a result, Lychee's voice rang out the next moment. Miss Mo, it will be weird if you suddenly cover your mouth and laugh in front of Miss Fan. Hold it back, hold it back. Nanlin. ... Well, Mo's character in his mind also collapsed. However, he didn't expect the current situation, because the five brothers who were eating dust on OB 7561 at the beginning are all here. Because it was not long ago, and a great event happened, the other four naturally chose to stick together after being rescued. At this time, Lychee's voice rang out. I think you can make good use of this group. You're a natural part of them. Lychee gave advice and also gave the experience of Laomu and the other four in Chunyuan 06 during this time. Because the OB 7561 incident was the trigger for the previous chaos, these four people have been participating in various accusations and testifying as witnesses for a period of time, eating in the public canteen, and living a good life. After the storm finally passed, when they were about to worry about their livelihood, they encountered the matter of Miss Fanny recruiting people. So, this small circle is very stable at present. After Nanling learned about the experience of these people, he suddenly had an idea in his mind. He felt that he could use them to complete the task quietly. Chapter 37 Development of Downline. Nanling looked at the four brothers around him. They had just introduced themselves. He kept thinking about the feasibility of his plan. At the same time, he was also looking for a breakthrough point. At this time, there was still 5 minutes before Miss Fanny entered the venue, and there was still room for maneuver. As for the breakthrough point, Laomu had already delivered it to the door. He looked around, and suddenly leaned over and lowered his voice and said, regarding the nobles on this ship, does Shonen have any good suggestions? Nanling was a little surprised, and then he hurriedly looked around with a guilty look, and then lowered his voice and said, brother, what do you mean by this? Laomu said to the other three people around him, watch out for the surroundings, don't let anyone eavesdrop on us. The three people obviously listened to Laomu. They looked around warily and blocked those who wanted to approach. This is normal. Similar small groups are not uncommon here. Only real lone travelers seem strange. At this time, Laomu said, when the accident happened on OB 7561, I saw a looter ship suddenly fly into space in your direction, and then all the looters on this planet flew away. Then we were rescued and participated in the series of events on Chunyuan 06 as witnesses. The looter ship that left first was done by you, Brother Shionen, right? Nanling was a little stunned, and then he didn't hide it. He said, since you have seen it, there is no need for me to hide it. Laomu was so excited that he said, brother, a person like you who appears here must have a closer relationship with the nobles on this ship. I want to ask, is there anything we can do for you? At this time, the other three people around also looked here intentionally or unintentionally, and they were obviously also concerned about the things here. Nanling pretended to sigh and said, it seems that the brothers should have discovered a key problem. Laomu was a little surprised. What did he find? Nanling thought they all knew it, so he talked about it. Since OB 7561 came back, our lives have actually become much better. As long as we are willing to endure some hardships on Chunyuan 06, we don't have to worry about starving to death. Laomu was touched by what he said, and he said, indeed, it has become much easier for us to find jobs since then, and we can even say that we have established a firm foothold in the middle-level area. It seems that you know why? Nanling looked at them and said, that's because there is a credit scoring system for all space station residents in the internal database of Chunyuan 06. We have gained a lot of credit because of OB 7561, which makes us more trusted people. I think you should understand what I mean, brother. Laomu showed a look of sudden realization when he heard it, and at the same time, he showed a more urgent attitude towards Nanlin. Unlike Nanlin, they can directly connect to the internet to collect various information after purchasing the smart core. They have no idea where to find a channel to query the credit value. Without the assistance of the smart core or the super brain, it is really difficult for them to adapt to the current highly informationist society with their human brains alone. He said, brother, don't keep us in suspense. Is there any good business that can be taken care of by the brothers? Nanling pointed to the door at the other end of the restaurant and said, "The Miss Fanny who will come out later is a real lady, but she may be a little naive. If she's excited and no one gives her face, it will be bad." Lao Mu understood what he meant. He didn't ask more details because he knew the limits. He just nodded and asked, "Is there any benefit?" Nanling raised a finger. Lao Mu was moved and said, 100 Lingzhu points. Nanling shook his head and said, "How can I only give 100? I can give you 1000 Lingzhu points. As long as you can make the lady happy today, you brothers can share these 1000 Lingzhu points." Lao Mu's face showed joy when he heard this. Maybe he thought that this money was too easy to make. But then he restrained his expression and asked, "Can I ask how much they gave you?" This question needs to be answered properly. Nanling will never let them know that he took 10,000 Lingzhu points, and he will not give more. As I said, for these people, giving too much is a very dangerous thing. Don't test their humanity, they can't stand the test. Nanling glanced at him and said, "That's it. It's originally a job of a shill. Giving 1000 already makes me feel scared." Lao Mu felt that the truth was right, but he still didn't think that Nanling only had this much income, so he took the time to ask tentatively, "But if this is the case, brother, aren't you at a disadvantage?" That look was an expression of "I can't let my brother suffer a loss." Nanling smiled and said, "Don't worry. Ms. Mo, the adjutant of our Eudoxia, is a generous person. She will definitely give me more money after she finds out that I gave you all my bounty and did a great job. And it doesn't matter if she doesn't give me more money. I care more about the long-lasting friendship with Ms. Mo." Old Mu laughed when he heard this. "It's good that my brother doesn't suffer any loss." He nodded with a smile, and then whispered to the people around him. Then the four of them dispersed to different corners of the restaurant. Nanling was relieved when he saw this. At least he was fooled this time. However, Ms. Mo, who was being pulled by him, couldn't help but interrupt. "I thought you were friends with them." Nanling said, "It's true that we can say friends when we meet for the second time, but it's more practical to have a relationship of interest. I guess this old Mu will pester me to introduce him to you, Miss Mo, in the future. You must not show your hand when the time comes." Mo was stunned for a moment, then nodded and said, "I know what to do. Management and psychology are also elective courses I took. Especially after watching you demonstrate once, I already know how to deal with the relationship between these people." Mo said a little, and then said, "Okay, Fanny is coming. She is a rather whimsical guy. Be prepared." Li Ji responded weakly, obviously having experienced how whimsical that young lady was. A moment later, the armed robot guard at the door shook the cold muzzle of the gun, and the extremely sensitive rotten people suddenly sat up straight and quieted down. Nothing is more convincing to them than the muzzle of a gun. At this time, a sound of footsteps came from another passage, 2 light and 1 heavy. There were 3 people coming. As for the heavy footsteps, Nanling suddenly asked in the communication, "Aunt Li Ji, have you aged yourself now?" Li Ji was silent for a moment, then said faintly, 1,350 grams, how heavy do you think a brain can be? Nanling immediately shut up, and Aunt Li Ji would be completely furious if he teased her again. 3 beauties pushed the door in, and the most eye-catching one was the black-haired woman in the red and white officer's uniform who walked in front. Her hair was not completely black, but faintly reddish-brown, naturally curly, and her long hair fell to her waist like waves. She wore a forehead band with a red crystal on her forehead, just like a fairy from the mortal world. Compared with Mo, who had wide legs and hips beside her, this Miss Fanny's figure was undoubtedly extremely perfect, and even had more natural beauty than Li Ji's prosthesis on the other side. And the extremely pure smile on her face could easily attract goodwill. As expected of a young lady, this kind of person is born with a charm that makes people around them feel ashamed. When the new book is first published, it is still 4,000 words a day, and it will be more after it is put on the shelves. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 38. The Underestimated Miss Nanling's first impression of Miss Fanny was actually quite good. After all, she was the real moneymaker, and he couldn't hate her at all. Fanny brought her 2 followers to the front of the restaurant, faced the gaze of these scum babes calmly, then nodded and said, "I know who you are, and I have the information of each of you here. To be honest, my friend Fendi, the commander of the Bayou 6th Fleet, once advised me that you are all unreliable people and I shouldn't entrust my dream to you. It's just that I think no one should be defined at birth. You may have no choice about what you were like before, but I am willing to give you a chance to choose again. I want to ask you, you can also ask your own heart, do you really want to be defined as a scumbag in the lower class for the rest of your life, and then spend your life in a daze? Nanling's trust worked. Anyway, Lao Mu said with red eyes. No, I don't want to. Nanling nodded involuntarily. This performance was perfect. He was just a little surprised. Looking at Lao Mu's expression, he always felt as if he was into the role a little too deeply. However, his performance was just right, fully reflecting the state of a lower-class person who was ambitious, wanted to climb up, and wanted to give himself a decent appearance. Similarly, his attitude was very contagious, and many people showed a thoughtful look. Fana smiled at Lao Mu in a friendly manner at this time, and then said, "It's okay if you don't want to. My Zhuoxia can give you a platform to change your destiny. On the Zhuoxia, equipment will be sold at a higher price, but it will also be at least 30% cheaper than the outside world. What is really cheap is knowledge, some knowledge that you didn't even have the opportunity to access before. I'm not afraid of your ambition, because ambition means that you are willing to make progress. Now the ready-made platform has been built for you. I just hope that in the future, when my Zhuoxia crew members go out, each of them will be an enviable elite." Special, Fanny's speech was very special. This completely overturned Nanling's previous understanding of him, although those understandings were all obtained from Mo and Li Ji. What did they say? They seemed to say that Miss Fanny was a troublesome young lady with a temper. But what Nanling saw now was clearly an elite social leader with a leadership temperament. She spoke so eloquently in front of a group of down-and-out people, using solid employment contracts and various exchange discounts to paint a beautiful prospect that seemed visible to the naked eye for everyone present. Nanling watched the people around him go from their original numbness to the agility of hope, and he was amazed in his heart. He didn't expect that this young lady actually understood what these people wanted. But after drawing the die, there was still a demonstration. Miss Fanny changed the subject again. The benefits have been mentioned, so next I should set the rules. The rules on the Zhuoxia are to obey my orders, complete the tasks I assign, and abide by the discipline set for you by First Maid Miss Mo. Don't try to be sneaky or have any dangerous thoughts. As she said that, Fanny stretched out her hand and lightly tapped a dining table behind her. The dining table started to burn very quickly. The flame was very special. It was bright red, and it melted the long alloy table into molten iron very quickly. And that's not the end. The molten iron was wrapped in flames and twisted like a spirit snake. Then it intertwined and gathered in Fanny's palm. The three streams merged and twisted together to form a molten flaming sword. She said, "My strength is enough to deal with all your dangerous thoughts." Using both kindness and force. This time everyone was really intimidated. They felt the strength and power of this young lady, which was simply not a realm they could reach. Nanling was extremely jealous. This kind of strength must have completed the foundation building. He even felt that the other party had no shortage of resources since birth and was outstanding enough. Maybe now he has reached the Jindan stage. At this time, he clicked on Mo in the group and said, "I see that the young lady is performing very well, and we don't need to worry about her at all." Mo did not respond, but another voice said faintly, "Where is this little brother? I really troubled you." Nanling's eyes widened at the time, with an expression as if he was about to die. When he looked up at Miss Fanny, he saw that she was looking at him with a smile on her face, and that smile was very playful. He felt that the problem was very serious. Looking at the group he joined, he found that there was one more person in the group all of a sudden. He lowered his head and pretended not to see the dangerous eyes of the young lady. At this time, Mo's voice came. "I'm sorry, Fanny discovered my private communication with Li Ji just now, and she insisted on joining our group and I didn't have time to tell you." Nanling looked at the channel where Mo was talking. Wow, it was another newly added small group of 3 people. He was quite familiar with this. After all, in the workplace of his previous life, there was always a group chat that joined all the employees, and then a leader is not in the group that lacked a big leader. Mo then said, "In the future, if we have work problems to communicate between us, it's here. That group is used to report the situation, and then it will be activated when Fanny needs to make a decision." Nanling didn't have time to pay attention to what she said. At this time, he was already saying seriously in the work group, "Miss, don't blame Sister Mo for being nosy. She actually didn't trust these people, so she let me mix in and act according to circumstances. But I didn't expect that Miss is so powerful. I haven't done anything yet and everyone is impressed by you. The leader is not in the group. Mo. Thank you so much. Liji. Ha ha ha, this is a beautiful way to pass the buck, Sister Mo, you have such a sweet mouth. The cold Mo couldn't hold it in at this moment. She felt that this boy was definitely poisonous. But she couldn't explain anything in front of Fanny. After all, this was really arranged by her. In the work group. Fanny. Hectares, it was Mo's idea after all. Mo. I'm just prepared. Fanny. Xiaonan, they all call you that, right? Don't be like No, who always thinks that you should do some unnecessary things for me because you know me well. I'm your captain, and you should believe in my ability. The big leader lectured, and Nanling hurriedly responded. In fact, he didn't take these words to heart at all, he just knew that he had passed this level. He could see that this Miss Fanny was not easy to fool at all, and she was very smart. And Mo's understanding of Fanny was actually not wrong. After all, they said they were a master-slave relationship, but in fact they were more like sisters who grew up together. It's just that Mo's understanding of Fanny came from life, and he probably didn't know how reliable Fanny was as a leader. Nanling made a guess that was closer to the truth about what happened today. But he was only happy about it. Just like Fanny said, this platform is too rare, and he certainly hopes that this platform that can bring great improvement to his personal ability will exist as long as possible. When his ability grows to a certain level, even if he will eventually lose this platform, it won't be a big pity. Thanks again to the book friends Chuanqi and Haigazai for the reward. Too much, too much. Chapter 39 Quantum Leadership. In the restaurant, after the eldest lady had spoken and established her authority, the meal began. The food was ordered from famous chefs in the middle area of the space station. It was not very good, but it was definitely the best food these people had ever eaten. Nanling even saw Liji eating a lot. To be more precise, she was eating happily. He opened The Leader Is Not in the Group and asked curiously, Aunt Liji, why are you eating? Liji replied, I told you that this is a top-grade head. Is it strange to have a sense of taste? Nanling felt sad in his heart. Liji spent all her money when she bought this head, and ended up losing everything just to find back what she once had. Don't look at her eating happily now. She will vomit out as much as she eats later because her body has no digestive ability. He looked at Mo from a distance again, and continued to ask in the group. Sister Mo, why don't you eat? Is the food not to your liking? Mo glanced at him helplessly and said, I've gained some weight recently, I have to be more restrained. Nanling quickly said, Sister is not fat, she has a well-proportioned and beautiful figure. Mo was a little unaccustomed to such sweet words, raised her head and glared at him from a distance, and said in the group chat, Be quiet, you're a little noisy. Nanling immediately quieted down obediently. In fact, his praise just now was sincere, but he felt that it was a bit ridiculous to watch Liji eating happily while Mo just sat quietly. Who is the prosthesis? At this time, there was movement in the work group again. Fanny, Liji, Xiaonan, you can come to the captain's room to find me after the end. Now the four of us are the management of this ship. We need to discuss the next itinerary together. Nanling was quite happy that he suddenly became the management. After all, this is a very respectable thing and a social status. The only thing that made him a little unreliable was that it was so easy to become the management. The feeling of this makeshift team was too strong. So he didn't care much about eating. He transferred 1,000 Lingzhu points to Lao Mu's account, and then got up and quietly left the restaurant. He didn't care about this lively scene. He only had a cup of fiery red juice in his hand, which was squeezed from a fruit he had never heard of. It tasted sweet and sour and had a very dense taste. This should be considered a basic drink in the upper-class area. Nanling looked at the price and found that such a cup would cost about 10 Lingzhu points. He could only sigh that she was worthy at being a young lady and was generous. Of course, this alone was not enough to impress him. Only by filling this cup of juice with gas and turning it into a sparkling juice would Nanling's ultimate pursuit. After taking a sip, he immediately felt the excitement of carbon dioxide exploding in his mouth, and the sweet and sour dense juice tasted great. He was a little surprised that this kind of juice seemed to be able to dissolve carbon dioxide better under high pressure. Although there is not much in this cup, it is so full of gas that you have to stop and take a rest after just one sip. This is a situation where it is particularly delicious and long-lasting. Nanling was very surprised. For him, this is a surprise in life, and it is also a pleasure to find his own. mixing sparkling water. Although this seems to be a boring hobby, he just likes it. Nanling came to the elevator and directly gave a voice command to go to the top cabin. Originally, he did not have this authority, but now he has it. The elevator stopped at the top cabin, and he found that this place is really good. There are viewing windows along the way where you can see the outside scenery, and the view is very wide. The cabins here are also very spacious and high-end. At first glance, it is the residence of the upper class. Nanling is not envious of this. He is in this corridor looking at the scenery and drinking sparkling juice. It is a different taste. After a long time, footsteps were heard in the corridor again. Nanling just wanted to say hello, but he saw a jumping and indecent girl wearing a red and white captain's uniform dancing. Mo, am I good at behaving? The head leaned against the tall Mo's chest, like a kitten begging for a pat. But Mo saw Nanling's face immediately. She speechlessly pushed her captain's head away with one hand and said to Nanling, "How long have you been here?" At this moment, Nanling always felt that Mo's aura seemed to be stronger than Miss Fanny's. He said honestly, "It's been a while. The scenery here is really beautiful." Fanny was suddenly embarrassed. She didn't expect that her childish side, which she only showed in front of Mo, would be exposed in front of outsiders. She stood up straight and coughed dryly. "Why are you here? I remember that no one can come up without authorization." Nanling sighed in her heart, and then asked tentatively, "Then I'll leave?" Mo looked at her daughter unhappily and said, "Fanny, this is Nanling, our quartermaster. Have you forgotten that you asked him to come up with Li Ji for a meeting?" Nanling interrupted at this time and asked sweetly, Sister Mo, when did I become the quartermaster again? I remember that I was just a logistics staff member, right?" Mo said, "This title was just thought up by Fan. By the way, you not only have to be the quartermaster, but also take on the work of the maintenance department, and you have to worry about the restaurant." Nanling felt extremely depressed when he heard it. He said, "Isn't it too much for me to do part-time jobs?" At this moment, another person came late in the corridor. Li Ji shook her head and said, "You are not the only one who has a part-time job. In addition to being an intelligence officer, I also have to take on the work of a scout. You say that an old lady who has never been to the battlefield has to do this at my age. It's not easy for me." At this time, Fanny, who had just exposed her childish temper, suddenly shook her head and said, "There is one thing I want to remind you. With the help of your intelligence core and super brain, you can quickly master and be competent for these jobs. Of course, this is not a reason for me to exploit you, and you must not think that it is me as a captain who is exploiting you. Li Ji, your ultimate goal is to become a digital life, right? You have to remember that only by using various external conditions to continuously improve yourself and ultimately let your will override the external hardware can you be qualified to become a digital life." She said with a solemn face, and then looked at Nanling and said, "And you, Shonen, right? You're on the same path of a cultivator as me. I guess you have also felt how useful the intelligence core is, right? But I want to say that only one day you can completely get rid of your dependence on the intelligence core can you truly witness the immortal way. Do you understand what I mean?" Nanling looked at Miss Fanny and felt that Fanny had become extremely wise again. At the same time, the confusion in his heart about the wisdom core was completely solved by this word. He nodded gratefully and said, "Thank you for your advice, miss. I understand." Fanny showed an expression of a teachable child, and then changed the subject and said, "Okay, we have finished talking about your things, now it's time to talk about my things. No, this is also your business. That is, what should we do next? The Juxia hunting ship." Nanling. Li Ji. Mo covered her face with one hand, as if she had known it would be like this. "No, as a captain who organized such a big bureau, and just conquered those bad guys with extraordinary personal charm, you suddenly said that you don't know what to do. So it was all empty talk just now. This empty talk skill is simply maxed out." Nanling showed an expression of disbelief. "What about the leadership of this young lady? Is it quantum attribute? I have to admit that Mo is the one who knows this young lady best. She is really unreliable. Chapter 40 Will you get beaten? What should we do next?" This question made Nanling fall into a long silence. Li Ji tentatively gave a suggestion. "Maybe we can find a mission to do. After all, the captain has just won the hearts of the people. Now we need to find something that everyone can work together to further gather people's hearts." Mo nodded, first agreeing with this idea, but then shook his head and said, "The direction is right, but things are not so easy to do. After all, our zooxia is too big, and the tasks suitable for Fen were naturally allocated by the Fen family. It is difficult for us to snatch food from the tiger's mouth. This is a mission, but in fact it is also a benefit. For Fanny, who has a strong sense of playing, it is estimated that no one will give up this benefit. At this time, Fanny turned to look at Nanling and said, "They all said so. Do you have any suggestions?" Nanling immediately said, "System O is right. I think we should look outside the wind region, as System O said. This is the border of the wind region. Outside, the star systems are just becoming sparse, not that there is nothing. There must be some valuable development targets hidden." Mo's eyebrows were about to stand up. He just said it, why did he bring her along? She didn't seem to understand Nanling's workplace wisdom at all. Nanling always regarded Mo as her direct superior, so in reporting in front of the big boss, no matter what she did, she had to take some credit from her direct superior. After all, the county magistrate is not as good as the current manager. Fanny laughed ha-ha when she heard it, and didn't ask about the serious matter. Instead, she smiled strangely and said, "It seems that you like Mo very much." Nanling looked at Mo seriously and felt the other parties dare to kill you if you dare to say anything expression. He nodded immediately and said, "Yes, I think Sister Mo is the most gentle and kind lady in the world." This was absolutely from the heart. After all, Mo was really the boss who was most willing to pay him. However, it was precisely because she felt his sincerity that Fanny's eyes widened, and then her eyes shuttled back and forth between Mo and Nanling, as if she was watching a good show. Mo's face turned pale, and she looked at Nanling coldly and said, "We will talk about this later, and I will let you know what gentleness means." Nanling felt that the situation was not good at the time, as if he had teased her too much. But the problem was that he didn't flirt with girls randomly. He really thought that Sister Mo, who paid her readily, was the best woman he had ever met. No, she could even be said to be the best person. At this time, Li Ji sent a private message. "No wonder you ignored me even though I offered myself to you. It turns out that you like girls like this. Unfortunately, I even made the troublesome breasts on my chest a little bigger for someone. This is a serious tease." Nanling said unhappily, "Aunt Li Ji, don't talk nonsense. If you met a boss like Sister Mo who is so generous in giving money, would you not like her?" Li Ji responded speechlessly, "Okay, I like her too. But if you like her in this way, why don't you express it clearly?" Nanling said distressedly, "I just don't want them to think that I am a mean person who only cares about money." On the other side, Fanny saw that Mo seemed to be really angry, so she waved her hand and said, "Okay, let's not talk about this. Your suggestions are all right. I will ask Xiaoyue tomorrow if there are any clues. Next is housekeeping. Needless to say, as the captain, I am the first mate, and Li Ji, you can work part-time as the second mate." Then she looked at Nanling and said, "Xiaonan, you are the youngest here, and you shouldn't bear so many burdens, but like I said, you need to get rid of the control of the intelligence core and try to control the feeling of spiritual power yourself. And the method I said is to distribute the computing power of the intelligence core as much as possible." Nanling was simply stunned by this trick. How could someone who was exploiting others find such a considerate reason? He lowered his head and said resignedly, "Miss, tell me, what do you want me to do?" Fanny said, "Quarterman, hangar maintenance, and restaurant. These 3 places are important logistical positions. How many robots do you need to take on all of them?" Nanling calculated and said, "The computing power of my intelligence core can accurately control 100 robots at the same time." Fanny asked, "I want an extreme data." Nanling said, "The limit is 107. Fanny said, "Okay, I will give you control authority over 120 robots and keep them all busy." Nanling was stunned, then realized something, and followed Fanny's previous words and asked, "Miss, is this to train my thinking ability, strengthen my will and divine consciousness?" Fanny once again showed a teachable expression and said, "Yes, only when you surpass the computing power of the intelligence core can you know where the limit of your thinking is. Just practice more now, it will be helpful when you build your foundation." Nanling nodded repeatedly after listening, as if he regarded Fanny as a life mentor. But in fact, this was purely to satisfy Fanny's vanity. How could a person who struggled from the bottom not know where the limit of his thinking was? However, Fanny's suggestion still opened up his mind and gave him another idea. At this time, Fanny's words were almost finished. She looked around and looked uncertain. Then she coughed and said, "Okay, I'm a little tired today. You can go and rest by yourselves." Nanling said goodbye immediately after hearing this. However, Mo suddenly stopped him and said, "Wait a minute, follow me." Fanny immediately showed an embarrassment and said, "Mo, how long do you want?" Mo looked at Nanling, and suddenly smiled coldly and said, "That depends on how long he can hold on." Nanling's back was sweating, and the word danger was written in capital letters in his heart. Fanny said a little unhappy, "Then hurry up, it's meaningless to play that dungeon alone without you. Good guy, this so-called a little tired just wants to play games, right? So this young lady is full of leadership and childish at the same time. Isn't this too hard to figure out?" However, Nanling felt much better about Fanny. After all, such a character is full of contrasting cuteness. It was Mo's invitation. Nanling followed Mo stiffly to a large room on the upper deck, which was a gym or a training room. As soon as he came in, he had a premonition of something and begged for mercy. "Sister Mo, I'm still young." Mo said with a cold face, "Don't you think I'm gentle? I think I need to change your wrong perception." As she said, she took off her coat, revealing a sleeveless shirt. The curves of her arms were so strong that it was hard to describe. Nanling closed his eyes in pain. He didn't expect to meet a woman who worked hard to train her muscles. What should he do? He was so panicked. Chapter 41. Set a small goal for yourself. Nanling was a little panicked when faced with the situation of practicing. He used his special trick, talking about something else. Seeing that Sister Mo opposite was about to invite him to practice, he looked at the equipment in the practice room with a surprised face and said, "The equipment here is really complete. Sister Mo, you are so kind to bring me here. Can I practice with it?" He decided to strike first and ask for practice. Mo was really a little off-kilter by his reaction. She clenched her fists and her attention was diverted to the equipment around her. She was actually very kind. She didn't wave her clenched fists on the spot, but said, "Of course I can," she wanted to say, "but practice with me first." As a result, Nanling ran to a piece of equipment like the wind. He looked at it with curiosity, like a bumpkin who had never seen the world. He asked, "Sister Mo, how do you use this?" Acting cute, definitely acting cute on purpose. But who can blame him for being so young, only 18 years old? Although 18 years old is no longer considered a child, it is definitely not considered an adult in the eyes of the upper class. So Mo really looked a little cute, and then walked over with a tangled face and said, "Your wisdom core can teach you." In fact, his wisdom core is already telling him how to use it. However, he said confidently, "But Miss Fanny said that I should not rely on the wisdom core." Mo was really speechless, turned around and walked away. "I'm too lazy to pay attention to you." In the end, he gave up. After she left, Nanling rested in a cold sweat. He survived. Then he reflected on himself and found that Sister Mo was really naive. In the future, he just needed to keep his respect and love for her in his heart. It might be life-threatening to bring it out. But how can I say it? These fitness equipment in front of him really opened his eyes. This whole set of equipment can definitely have a good exercise effect on the muscles of the whole body. Nanling felt that Mo's tendon muscles might have been trained here. But at the same time, this kind of physical muscle training has become the most inefficient way to improve in this era. Nanling chose to leave after experiencing it seriously for an hour and a half. It's not that he gave up, but he felt that this 1.5 hours of training a day was enough. He still had too many things to do, and he really didn't have time to waste here. After wiping the sweat off his body and feeling the slightly swollen muscles all over his body, he felt that this was not bad, and he could come here often in the future. After he left, he naturally didn't know that Mo, who had left a long time ago, came back here and wiped all the equipment he had used. Mo, who was squatting on the ground wiping, looked very frustrated, probably because these equipment were what she used on a daily basis, and she had a little bit of cleanliness and didn't like others to use her things. But what else can be done? Who asked her to bring people to this training room that belonged to her, and used her things with her consent? This was simply driving her to death. Nanling didn't realize that he almost drove a girl he loved to death, but just returned to his room and began to expand his robot army according to Miss Fanny's requirements. The eldest lady only gave him the control authority of 120 robots, but didn't tell him where these robots should be used. Anyway, Nanling was not vague at all. 120 sets of robot weapons were rushed to work overnight. He also assigned 36 robots to start another task. That is to hand-make combat armor for him according to the drawings he provided. There are so many mixed people on this ship, and Nanling really feels insecure. So he decided to make a set of armor for himself to protect himself. As for the drawings of the armor, he naturally bought them specially. The drawings of this armor are not expensive, but the trouble is the alloys required for various parts. Well, these alloys are not a problem. Nanling found that he could find them in the warehouse of the Zhuoxia, and even if he couldn't find them, there were upgraded versions. The tedious part is how to process these alloy materials into the parts he needs. The processing tools are all available. There is a small but comprehensive industrial manufacturing center hidden on this ship, which is outrageously luxurious. The good news is that Nanling can use this processing center for free, but the bad news is that he needs to exchange all the raw materials himself. Nanling calculated the price of the finished product of the Hurricane armor he liked. 1,600,000 Lingzhu points. This price is a bit scary. 1.6 million, how did it come from? The main reason is that this set of armor integrates many high-tech products, and it also has a powerful spell amplification function. In addition, the amplification of the computing power of the intelligence core and the spiritual energy at the spirit furnace are also very critical functions. Nanling carefully studied the parameters of this set of armor and felt that if he wore such a set of armor, he might have the combat power of the peak of the golden elixir. Of course, it is definitely a huge project to make this whole set of Hurricane armor by hand. Anyway, Nanling himself is now very strenuous just to let the robot smelt the shell parts, and often makes mistakes. This is not because there is a problem with the drawings or his intelligence core is not powerful, but his self-will is involved. He still wants to master this ability himself. Because the finished Hurricane armor is 1.6 million outside, and the price on the Zhuoxia is 1 million. If he can make it by hand, it only needs 340,000 raw materials. 36 robots are constantly engaged in production work, and Nanling's consciousness is also fully involved in this process. He is controlling the work of the robots to fully master this aspect of knowledge. This is definitely a huge project, and he is ready to realize it step by step. Because this is how he exercises his thinking ability, not to squeeze the performance of the intelligence core to the limit, but to use the assistance of the intelligence core to test his ability to absorb knowledge to the limit. And his brain can't hold on, and the 36 robots will also shut down, and he will continue to try after his energy is restored. This is actually a stupid way, but it is undeniable that the training effect is excellent. Because the auxiliary ability of the intelligence core is too strong, it can make him worry-free. So the next day came, Nanling received 3 guests in his temporary quarters. These 3 guests are the helpers that Miss Fanny asked for from Miss Fenby, 3 retired white feather soldiers. They have passed the interview and were personally led by Mo to the quarters to receive uniforms and equipment, which is regarded as a sign of attention. However, Nanling did not come in person, but completed the duties of the quarters through logistics robots. He was looking at the 3 people through the robot's eyes. All 3 were men, and they all looked old and a little down and out. But this was normal, after all, if they were not down and out, they would not have come here. Nanling asked, and the leader is not in the group. Do you have the work resumes, reasons for retirement, and post-retirement experiences of these 3 people? Li Ji said. I am collecting them. I will post their work resumes in the group now, and the reasons for retirement are also included. But it will take me some time to study my post-retirement experiences, so you guys take a look first. She was obviously using the advanced equipment on the Zhuoxia to quickly screen the information in the Chunyuan 06 network. She was quickly becoming competent as an intelligence officer. Chapter 42. The Problems of 3 Newcomers. Nanling read through the resumes of the 3 men and found that they were all veterans of hundreds of battles. The human star field was not peaceful either. Because they had not encountered any foreign enemies for the time being, internal conflicts had never ceased. Just like the border area of Chunyuan 06, it had experienced a border friction with its neighbors 20 or 30 years ago, and these 3 people had experienced real interstellar wars. If such people could survive until retirement, the logistics department of the White Feather Corps would definitely arrange jobs for them, and they would definitely be able to live well. But why did they fall so low that they had to come to the Zhuoxia to make a living? Although the Zhuoxia did give a lot, the problem was that these veterans who had experienced thousands of sales should cherish their quiet old age. Nanling said, System O, I think we certainly need these talents, but we also need to understand the backgrounds of why they are willing to join us. It doesn't mean that we can completely trust them just because Miss Fenyi recommended them. Mo said dimly, are you saying that I can't completely trust you either? She wanted to kick this guy out. She had a hard time wiping those fitness equipment yesterday, and she really didn't want to experience it a second time. Nanling didn't expect that the incident suddenly came to him. He coughed dryly and said, that's different. Aunt Li Ji and I are alone. We have nowhere else to go except to be loyal to Sister Mo and the eldest lady. But those 3 people originally served the Feng family. We must understand their mental state and establish a file to track them. After all, they will all have important responsibilities in the future. Mo was about to say something when Li Ji suddenly said, I don't know about the other two yet, but I think I know the reason for the one Cody named CK among the three. Mo immediately said in a solemn voice, please tell me about it. Li Ji said, this CK is the same as me. Except for the brain, his whole body has been prosthetic. Maybe he was seriously injured before, but this is enough to explain everything. We also saw that his prosthesis is not cheap, and the daily maintenance is a huge expense. Just like I knew that I would rush here at all costs if I had the chance on the Zooxia, he actually has no other choice like me. Unless he is willing to use a civilian prosthesis with incomplete functions, his salary after retirement will not be able to sustain the maintenance of the prosthesis for long. Nanling pondered and said, then, this person should be marked with emphasis, and there is a risk of serious mental problems. Mo almost didn't come back to her senses. She said, shouldn't such a person be trustworthy? Li Ji said, Miss Mo, you are still too young. You don't know the feeling of having your whole body be almost the same as a robot. Think about it, when the stimulation from the outside world to your brain becomes less and less, you gradually become uninterested in everything in the outside world, and even need some more and more extraordinary means to stimulate your brain to feel your own existence. Do you think this mental state is very reliable? Mo understood it as soon as she heard it, so this is the origin of the mechanical syndrome. I didn't think of it for a while, but fortunately it reminded me. She is extremely knowledgeable and understands everything at a glance. At this time, Li Ji said again, here they are. Their information has been summarized. I have sorted it into a data package and put it in the group for you to see for yourself. Later, a large data package appeared in their chat space. Nanling loaded the data package with the smart core and soon understood the information of the three people thoroughly. Sure enough, the situation of CK was almost the same as Li Ji's judgment, so it was necessary to pay special attention to his mental state. The problem of another person named Dim Joshua was serious. He was deceived into the gambling circle, and then lost all his property. He has become a homeless person in the lower district. If it weren't for the major reorganization of the space station in front, all those who set up the trap for him and lent him money were caught. I'm afraid he couldn't even leave the door of the lower district. The last one, Taoki, was the worst. He was discharged from the battlefield and returned home to live a warm life with his wife and children, but he saw his beloved wife fooling around with another man. So he was furious and killed the adulterer with one blow, so he had to eat prison food. When he was released from prison, he wanted to find his relatives, but found that he was already alone with grey hair. After reading the information of these three people, Nanling only sighed. Good people are really not interested in playing house games with the eldest lady. Mo said, sure enough, they are all problematic. These three people are all useful but not very useful. There is no need to say more about CK. Only when he can get out of the mechanical syndrome like Sister Li Ji can we be completely relieved. Otherwise, there'll always be a tendency to destroy. That Ding Joshua has the most serious problem. It is hard for us to believe that he will not choose to sell out the interests of everyone on the Zooxia in order to gain some personal benefits. Only Taoki, who is alone, can worry less, but his problem is that he may work without putting in effort with a mentality of muddling through. Nanling was impressed by Mo's intelligence after hearing this. She can see things clearly. He said, we can only make do with them now. At least before they have problems, they are all excellent soldiers in the White Feather Corps. So if we can activate their abilities and solve their problems, then Miss will have gained 3 capable generals. Mo sighed and said, I thought someone would share the heavy responsibility, but it turned out that they are all problematic people. It seems that they can only be temporarily assigned to the ground development force. She decided to take these people with her personally. For that time being, this is the only way to feel at ease. After discussing the 3 newcomers, Nanling asked one more question. Have we decided on the goal of our first mission? Although he thought it was not bad to just live a leisurely life, he was more looking forward to the adventure that was about to begin. After 18 years in this world, it would be a waste if he could not go to the Sea of Stars. Mo smiled bitterly and said, we have 2 goals. I will discuss with you later. However, as soon as he finished saying the leader is not in the group, Miss Fanny in the work group said with full energy, I have decided on the first mission goal. I will put the information here. You all can take a look at it and consult with me. As she said that, a data package was placed in front of the 3 people. At this moment, Nanling seemed to be able to see the bitter smile on Mo's face from the other side of her silence. Obviously, this was Miss Fanny's willful and arbitrary decision again. But it was good, so he didn't have to consider another mission goal. Now that the goal was clear, Nanling felt relieved. Chapter 43. How about installing a ram on the ship? The first pioneering mission of the Zhuoxia hunting ship has determined the target, which is located in a void 400 light-years away from Chenyuan. If the entire galaxy where humans' life is regarded as a disk, then Chenyuan 06 is on the edge of one side of the disk, and the target location is in the endless dark void. According to the information provided by Fanny, there should be a dim white dwarf in this place. As for why it attracted Miss Fenyi's attention, it was because a companion planet was unexpectedly observed around this white dwarf. This is too surprising, because in the process of a star evolving into a white dwarf, it is generally accompanied by the destruction of the original planets in the star system. There are very few white dwarfs with planets orbiting them, and the orbit of that planet is very close to the white dwarf, which is definitely within the range of being swallowed by the red giant, but it exists there, and it was even detected that this is a planet with an atmosphere. Fanny, you have seen the information, right? Such celestial bodies are very interesting, right? I can't wait to see what's going on. Nanling thought it was very interesting, and he nodded repeatedly, saying, "This is very interesting, Mrs. Wise." Fanny was delighted by the sincere flattery. He was really interested. After all, as a person from the future, how could he not be curious about the strange things in the deep space? In his previous life, he had dreamed of becoming an astronaut when he was a child. Now it can be regarded as a childhood dream of his. Mo looked at Nanling, who was adding fuel to the fire speechlessly. She wanted to get this guy off the boat even more. She was tired enough cleaning Fanny's ass, and then another person came to join in the fun. This was definitely a flatterer. Li Ji coughed dryly and said, "Did the White Feather Corps give a clear mission?" Fanny said, "No, it's just that the scientists in Fenyu observed the anomaly of this white dwarf, and then reported the news to Fenyi, wanting her to send someone to observe it. But her funds are limited, where is the extra money to send someone on this trip, so she told me about it." Mo understood and said, "In other words, we only need to hand over the various data and parameters of this white dwarf galaxy observed on this trip to Miss Fenyi, right?" Nanling was very concerned about one thing after hearing this. "Then what about our reward?" Fanny. Mo. This is something they have never thought about. After all, in their minds, they went to Miss Fenyi to find something to do, and then Fenyi provided them with intelligence, and they shared the information with Miss Fenyi afterwards, which is very reasonable. They didn't expect why Nanling's focus would suddenly fall on reward. The naivety of the rich lady is really annoying. Fortunately, Li Ji and he had a good understanding. She immediately understood what Nanling meant and explained, "I agree with Xiaonan's suggestion. We should at least ask Miss Fenyi for some compensation. Since the two ladies have already set up this team, the funds to maintain the operation of Zhuoxia cannot always rely on the two ladies' personal assets." Fanny muttered, "But I have enough pocket money." Li Ji. She was absent-minded for a moment, and even she had the idea of robbing money. This kind of dog-rich man was really abominable. Nanling quickly followed up and said, "Miss, you're awesome, but if you can make Zhuoxia have a healthy operation, it will be a better incentive for all the employees on the ship." He really had good intentions, because the current situation is that Zhuoxia really depends on the mood of the young lady. But if there is a complete and healthy operating system, then even if the young lady is in a bad mood one day, Zhuoxia can continue to operate. This platform is too important to Nanling, and he really doesn't want to lose it unless it is necessary. The same situation is with Li Ji. Not to mention the prosthesis she is using now, the price is also very expensive. And the head she is using now, the market price outside is up to 700,000. The maintenance cost is even more. To be honest, the price of this top-level prosthesis is even higher than the hurricane armor that Nanling has been thinking about. He had always thought that he would be satisfied with the three-piece set, but he knew that getting the three-piece set was just the beginning. If Nanling left Zhuoxia and only lost a channel for rapid improvement, then Li Ji might face her own comprehensive degradation after leaving Zhuoxia. What the two of them said made sense, at least in Mo's opinion. She was a woman with some obsessive-compulsive disorder. Once she decided to do something, she must do it to the best of her ability, so she also voted in favor of it. Only Fanny was afraid of trouble. She said shamelessly, "It's so annoying. Mo, go and negotiate for me. Just talk about some benefits and show your appreciation. It's too embarrassing for me to come out alone." Mo was not surprised by this result. She said, "Okay, I'll talk to Miss Fenyi about it later. Now that the course has been decided, it's time to prepare for the voyage. Quartermaster, is there anything else you need?" Nanling felt a little uncomfortable when he heard it. Was Systemo deliberately keeping a distance from him? However, when he was working seriously, he still knew the occasion. He said, reporting to the first mate, "Considering the risk of encountering looters after leaving the Wind region, I need to inventory the arsenal and then customize a countermeasure plan." Fanny was a little concerned when she heard it. She asked, "Are those looters powerful?" Nanling complained, "Of course not. I guess our Zhuoxia can smash those spaceships if we just rush up." He understood this point deeply. Li Ji felt that he was a little unserious. After all, they were discussing work seriously. Who knew that Fanny's thoughts suddenly jumped up, and she said, "Then do you want to install a RAM on our ship?" "Mo!" Exclamation mark. Install a RAM on the hull of the Zhuoxia, which is like a work of art. What kind of weird painting style is that? She had already suddenly opened Nanling's private chat dialogue box. Without saying anything, she gave this kid a sharp look. "Don't talk nonsense, or I will kill you." Nanling felt the murderous aura, and he felt extremely wronged. He was obviously talking about serious matters. It was the young lady who had a big imagination. Why was she so fierce to him? Fortunately, he was a quick-witted person. Under Systemo's murderous gaze, he showed a surprised smile and said, "Captain, you are really amazing. You can actually think of such an idea." The murderous aura became stronger. "I'll make a honeycomb system right now, and then equip our unmanned escort fleet with ramming horns. Those raiders either don't come, or they're dead if they come." To be honest, Fanny actually regretted her whimsical idea just now. After all, normal people would not agree with that kind of aesthetics after coming to their senses. But if she changed her mind immediately, where would the captain's face be? Fortunately, Nanling is really a considerate and lovely girl, and she solved the problem perfectly for her in one go. It's really a genius idea to equip the unmanned escort fleet with ramming horns. "How did I come up with it?" She said, "Okay, I'll leave this to you. If you need anything, just ask Mo for it." The eldest lady became a hands-off boss again. At this moment, Mo's eyes looked at Nanling and became gentle. She said, "Do we need to purchase additional materials to make the drone fleet? Give me a number." Nanling calculated and felt that this kind of drone fleet really only needed the price of raw materials under the perfect industrial system of Zhuoxia. So he said, "About 10 million for materials will be enough." Mo said without blinking, "I'll give you 12 million. Ask me for more when you've spent it all." They didn't say it explicitly, but both knew that this was a reward or compensation for Nanling's good performance just now. Who made her a little fierce just now? Although this is public money, isn't the quartermaster the position that is best at using public money for private work? Nanling blinked, and he found that he couldn't stop loving Systemo anymore. What should he do? This is too gentle. Chapter 44 Active Thinking in Hyperspace. Making the unreliable reliable. This is what Nanling is doing now. He found that it seemed to be a very feasible operation to equip the drone with a ram. After all, no one would think of using a drone to cross a long distance to directly attack the opponent's large warships, right? In this era, drones are always used for defense. The real means of attack is the main gun on the warship, which can hit far. So a small, agile and tough drone became Nanling's choice. In fact, the size of this drone is not even as big as a logistics robot, but once it is running, the damage it can cause is absolutely considerable. As for such a drone, it may not be able to tear the energy shield of a large warship, but can a conventional drone tear the shield of a large warship? It can't do it either, so it's better to operate it in the most material-saving way. Nanling reported a budget of 10 million to purchase materials, and Mo directly added 2 million to him, which is counted as a budget of 12 million. Nanling actually understood what this meant. The extra 2 million was for him to do as he pleased, and he could also import some materials he needed, which was considered a public account. Nanling did choose some materials that he needed to buy, so that he could buy them cheaply with his own money and do what he wanted. But most of the money was used to buy the production drawings of various drones from the Chenyuan 06 space station. There was some information on this in the Zhuoxia, but not much. He was so busy that he soon forgot the time until the Zhuoxia finally started to move. Nanling looked up from a pile of information and looked at the constantly moving scene outside the French window next to his room. Only then did he know that the spacecraft was about to take off. He asked in the work group, "Have you set off? Have you negotiated the terms with Miss Yi?" Mo quickly replied. It has been negotiated. Although it is the information provided by them, as long as we complete the full exploration of the galaxy, we can have full ownership of it according to the development act by our Zhuoxia. A reward that is better than nothing. Don't think that owning a galaxy is such a great achievement. If there are no special resources in this star system, or there are no planets suitable for human migration, then these galaxies can be said to be worthless. Li Ji asked, are you finally out of retreat? You haven't spoken for a week. I thought you were too busy. Nanling said, no, I'm just learning drone-related technology. I find that anything, as long as you focus on it, can be a great topic. Mo hesitated. She had seen Nanling's expenditure records and knew that the 12 million yuan was spent on the right things. She felt that she had been too harsh on such an honest child before, so she said in a rather gentle tone, you have to have a focus. If you want to learn everything, you probably won't be able to do it even with the help of Zi. Nanling didn't think it was a big deal. He said, learn more first. After all, these are just the basics. When you really can't handle it, consider focusing on it. Seeing that he was so clear-headed, Mo nodded and said nothing. Fanna suddenly said, what you can buy on the market is indeed not advanced. If you really want to learn the cutting-edge technology in this world, you still have to go to major famous universities. She said this, but it immediately aroused Nanling's thoughts. The famous schools of this era are different from ordinary schools. In fact, there is really no such thing as basic education in this school. After all, there is no need for basic education that can be learned in 1 second with the help of the intelligence core. And the students of the real famous schools have long been like monsters with the help of the intelligence core or the superbrain. Nanling is quite longing for such a place, but he doesn't have any plans. After all, it is most important to do the current things well. Fanna said. Okay, don't chat. The spaceship will enter hyperspace flight 3 hours after leaving the port. Let's get ready. Nanling put down the work in his hands, got up and took the elevator to the top floor of the spaceship, and then went straight into the training room to start working out. Once again sweating with the top facilities here, Nanling felt that all the pores in his body began to breathe comfortably. He has been staying at home for a week, and he needs to move and sweat. He was happy, but he didn't see that after he left, his cold systemo came in with a face full of resentment and started wiping the equipment again. The look of resentment really made people feel that she wanted to kill someone. Nanling was completely unaware of this and was in a good mood of see you next time. He returned to his room, took a shower, and then stayed there waiting for the hyperspace flight to start. There was a fixture in the room that could fix his body to offset the huge impact of the hyperspace jump. When the countdown ended, he only felt a slight tremor in his whole body, and then the organs of his whole body were instantly disordered in their perception of the world. He had made several hyperspace jumps before, and basically his mind paused instantly, and then he would return to consciousness at the moment of ending the hyperspace jump. But this time he was clear-headed, but his consciousness conflicted with the organs of his whole body, and he felt very uncomfortable all of a sudden. Because at this moment, his whole body's life activities were actually stopped, but the intelligence core did not stop running. It replaced part of the brain's function and operated as the carrier of Nanling's consciousness for a period of time. And it was precisely because of this that he felt extremely uncomfortable. He wanted to breathe, but found that he couldn't breathe at all. He couldn't feel his heartbeat, he just felt that he was in a cold body, without any feeling to the outside world. At this moment, his heart was full of panic, and only the intelligence core was running rationally and coldly. Although it was hyperspace flight, it would take at least a month to fly a distance of 400 light-years. During this month, he could do almost nothing, but his mind could rely on the intelligence core to exist, and it seemed that he could only embrace the ocean of data in the intelligence core. But he thought about it, and suddenly sent a text message in the work group. Can I sleep during hyperspace flight? He was not sure whether this message was sent. But the next moment he knew it was sent. Because, Mo. Fanny. Can I chat during hyperspace flight? Why didn't I notice this before? Nanling. Is this strange? Mo. During hyperspace flight, the human body will fall into a state of time freezing due to the drastic changes in time and space. Only practitioners who were in the middle or close to the golden elixir stage can awaken their consciousness with the help of the intelligence core. I was able to do this not long ago. She paused, and then added another message. In other words, you have a spiritual potential of at least the peak level of foundation building. Nanling was not surprised by his potential. After all, how could he travel through time without being special? He asked. Didn't Aunt Li Ji wake up? Mo said. If she can wake up, it proves that she is really on the road to evolution to digital life. Now it seems that she is still a little short. Fanny. Okay, let's not talk about that. It's a month. Think about what fun things to do. Nanling asked. What did you do before? Fanny said. I saved a lot of video data in my intelligence core. Good guy, a month of watching movies. But this is not over yet. Fanny said. I also loaded a lot of standalone versions of virtual reality games, but now it seems that it can be connected to the internet. Anyway, it's only our physical bodies that are still, but our minds and our intelligence cores can function normally. She seemed very happy. But she was also a very considerate girl. Realizing that there was still one person sleeping in this group, she deleted all the previous chat records, and then created another group with only Fanny, Mo and Nanlim. Name. Hyperspace Active Group. Nanlim. He really didn't have the energy to complain about this terrible group name. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 45. Galaxy Past. It's rare to be so active during hyperspace travel. After all, everyone is used to enduring loneliness alone during this period. Before Nanling had time to experience this loneliness, he had to face a very lively scene. He was tracked by his female boss to play games. It was an action game, a large-scale one. Galaxy Past series. This is a virtual reality game that is very popular in the entire human world. It includes all the famous battles and major events in the 100,000 years since humans left their home planet, and it can be called an epic masterpiece. Nanling had only heard of this game before, but he didn't have any intention of trying it. After all, in his opinion, it was just a waste of time. But now it seems that it can't be completely a waste of time. After all, such a virtual reality game is extremely beneficial to one's own combat response and certain aspects of tactical training. Fanny. Are you ready? I'm in the middle, Shonan is on the left, Mo is on the right, let's go together. Nanling followed his boss to charge, and then faced a group of enemies similar to Colitra and fired repeatedly. This is a strange planet. After he was swallowed by a dozen insect soldiers without knowing what was happening, he remembered to ask the Zimmy to search for some of this history when he was reading the resurrection bar. It turned out that this was the enemy encountered during the first expedition of mankind. At the time, these enemies occupied resource planets and continuously debarked the life and civilization of the entire galaxy. There are rumors that the reason why mankind has not encountered other intelligent races in the galaxy so far is that they were destroyed by these terrible devourers first. At the time, mankind had no preparations and just ran into them head-on, and started a 1,000-year-long battle with these terrible enemies. However, these terrible enemies exist on almost all planets that can be explored and are suitable for the reproduction of life. Humans have to conduct expeditions and fight on planets one by one. The most important thing is that the Interstellar Federation, which originally hosted this expedition, eventually disintegrated because it could not support this long war and the terrible fiscal deficit. It should have been a disaster for mankind. If these Colitra enemies took advantage of this to counterattack, they would inevitably destroy mankind. But they did not take any action, just drove humans out of the galaxy they controlled, and that was it. This gave humans time to breathe and complete internal reintegration, and finally attacked again to defeat these terrible creatures, which were later named the Nether Locust Clan. After reading this history, Nanling's only feeling was a lot of dark secrets. The Nether Locust Clan is the name given by humans to this race that once dominated the entire galaxy. It can be said that half of the 100,000 years of human development history has been fighting against the Nether Locust Clan. Just carefully studying all the war cases in the past 50,000 years can actually be summarized into one step. Discovering a planet with life, discovering a group of Nether Locusts, and then landing to clean up, that's all. The huge group of Nether Locusts was scattered among the stars, waiting for humans to set foot and then be cleaned up. In this process, humans were stimulated to unleash all their war potential, bursting out with a variety of strengthening and technological directions, until later the Nether Locust Clan could not pose enough threat to humans. However, humans still fought very hard in the early stages of the entire war, which was known as the Nether Locust disaster. It was after the plague of the Dark Locusts that the Human Federation disintegrated, and forces based on interest communities such as clans and consortiums became the mainstream of humanity. The war that Nanling is participating in now is the early stage of the plague of the Dark Locusts, which is still the era of the Human Federation. He is wearing power armor that looks very backward from today's perspective, and he also uses kinetic weapons. Then, as a member of the expeditionary force of the Human Federation, he fought a bloody battle with the Dark Locusts. It's great. Let's discuss tactics later, and then we can go. Fanny also came back from the dead. Mo came back not long after. Her combat quality is obviously the strongest, but she knows very well that she is playing with the eldest lady, so she came back to read the bar after Fanny died. Nanling asked in a depressed tone, "Is this the only way to charge as cannon fodder?" Fanny said, "What else?" Nanling said, "What is the goal of this battle?" Fanny said, "Find and eliminate the Hades Locust King. This is the goal of almost every planet." Nanling said, "Then when we start next time, should we observe the battlefield environment before making a decision?" Fanny hesitated. Mo said, "Fanny, shonen means that we should not rush so fast." At this time, Nanling's reading time was just about to resurrect. Although it was an LA game, the progress of the battlefield did not stop at the beginning, and they also re-entered the battlefield as reinforcements. There was nothing to complain about the weapons, and Nanling's comprehensive shooting ability at LV4 was not very impressive at this time. If the intelligence core could be used, he would be able to directly have the auxiliary shooting ability of LV6 LV8, but this is not a game, and it would be meaningless to cheat like this. Previously, he was tracked by the eldest lady and rushed into the enemy group without thinking. Now thinking about it, it was no different from courting death. He first looked around to observe the battlefield situation, and found that this was a landing battlefield. In the sky, countless locusts were flying, fighting with human space fighters. On the ground, troop transports landed one after another. Soldiers rushed out of the troop transports and had to face the attack of countless locust larvae that drilled out from the ground. It was already difficult for the ground forces to temporarily stabilize the front line. Nanling was not in a hurry to join the battlefield. He first familiarized himself with the equipment on his body and the situation on the battlefield. When he just got out of the troop transport ship, there was indeed a relatively safe stage, which allowed him to slowly enter the combat state. I don't know if he is used to the operation of the intelligence core, his thinking is very fast when using these ancient equipment, and he grasped the key points at once. Then he saw an armored vehicle anchored next to him. The soldiers inside had already left the walking battle. Nanling immediately stepped forward to dismantle the heavy automatic firepower on the armored vehicle, and then held it in his hand as a self-propelled turret. This heavy weapon is very heavy, and the energy of the power armor will definitely be consumed at an alarming rate, but Nanling never thought about how far he could go, and just followed the assembly instructions in the combat system to gather at the assembly point. The goal of this first stage is obviously to complete the assembly of the landing troops. At this moment, a call came from his teammate's channel. "Xiaonan, where are you?" The teammate's marks were displayed on a simple holographic map. Nanling said, "We just need to meet at the assembly point." He was not going to follow the eldest lady, and was going to experience this holographic game by himself. He believed that this was not only a holographic game for entertainment, but also an important way to understand the history of human development, and a training ground that could help him grow some battlefield skills. Following Miss Fanny, it would really be just playing. Chapter 46. Practice in Hyperspace. Nanling never thought that he was a genius in playing games. Maybe he knew how to cooperate with his comrades around him. Anyway, as long as he followed the crowd, he soon arrived at the place where the army assembled without any danger. He was actually following the process. After all, this was just a game. He couldn't use the abilities he had in reality. He could only fight with the equipment of the era. It would be bad if he was too out of line. However, his boss was not satisfied because she died again. Nanling didn't wait for the boss to say anything, and immediately ran to the swarm of locusts to give himself up. He had realized the problem. That is, his boss was not the kind of person who liked to follow that crowd and follow the script. Look at what Fanny did. She was completely the opposite of the process of this game. Judging from her route, she wanted to find and kill the king insect herself. Nanling gave up the mood of immersing himself in this period of history. Then he honestly accompanied that boss to read the rebirth bar. This time, he was a well-behaved little brother beside the boss and followed Miss Fanny to guard her flank. Of course, even so, he also had his outstanding points. While fighting, he always paid attention to collecting the scattered supplies on the battlefield. Once the young lady used up her ammunition, he would immediately hand her the ammunition he collected to continue. He would also observe the terrain to find a suitable direction for advancing or defending. When things really went wrong, he would become the first character to die, blocking the knife for the two bosses. He was absolutely conscientious and clearly demonstrated what it meant to be playing with someone. When Fanny and Mo returned to the resurrection space one after another after a while, Fanny was already unsatisfied and said, "I didn't expect you to be so good at supporting. I wish I had met you earlier." Mo's mouth twitched. She felt offended. This man is really a flatterer who can coax the king not to attend the court early. But to be honest, she didn't have any dissatisfaction with Nanling this time, but instead felt the same satisfaction as Fanny. Because from her point of view, it was finally a reliable helper who could help her clean up Fanny's ass. Yes, it was this kind of comrade-in-arms feeling. After playing 2 more games like this, Nanling resigned. "Why don't you play? I'm having fun." Fanny was very reluctant to leave. It was rare for her to meet such a good playmate. Nanling treated this as a job. Now the working hours have been full for 8 hours. If he is asked to work overtime, he will be paid extra. He said, "I feel a little tired. I mainly want to take advantage of this time to study and improve myself. I haven't mastered many drawings that we can use on the ship yet." Fanny said, Okay, I didn't expect you to be so motivated." Mo suddenly interrupted, "But this is a good thing. Let's play tomorrow." Fanny said, "For us, the time of the body has stopped. There is no tomorrow." Mo said, "Then let's Shiaxia count 16 hours from now. Shao Nanny, come to us again in 16 hours. Fanny didn't ask why it was 16 hours. Maybe she understood or was too lazy to think about it. But Nanling felt like he was touched. He found that Mo already knew him so well. After saying goodbye, he quit the game. Looking at the recorded game time, it was 8 hours and 11 minutes. He shook his head. It seemed that what he did was still a bit obvious. But there was no other way. He could enjoy life later. What he lacked the most was time to improve himself or catch up with his peers. Yes, he used the word catch up because he knew that he was definitely lacking behind among his peers who really had resources. But he was not busy studying the equipment drawings or anything like that. After all, they were external things to him. It was enough to have the help of the intelligence core. He was more concerned about his own practice. Speaking of which, his body was stagnant, but his spiritual power was not necessarily. Although these spiritual powers seemed to have lost their activity and stayed in his body, since the instruments and equipment could operate normally in this hyperspace, it meant that this did not affect the energy properties. He began to try to use his willpower to drive his own spiritual power to operate. However, after the spiritual power in his body was pushed by him, it stopped moving again. He was like trying to wake up a person who was playing sloppy. Nanling looked at his spiritual power playing sloppy and felt that it was very strenuous. His willpower could only activate a small part of it, but it was not like usual when he could drive all the spiritual power to operate together as long as he activated this small part. This seemed to be telling him, "Stop thinking about it, you can't practice in the hyperspace state." But Nanling is an expert in reverse thinking, and he suddenly felt that he could now cooperate with his anti-bone intelligence core. He ordered the intelligence core to operate the spiritual power in his body. The spiritual power did not move, and the intelligence core did not move, which was normal. But when Nanling's own will was added, it was different. In the past, his will had always been in conflict with the intelligence core, and he knew very well that the role of the intelligence core was to impose a constant and integrated constraint on his spiritual power, so that the spiritual power would continue to run according to the trajectory set by the intelligence core. And what Nanling needs now is this constant and integrated constraint, which can gather the scattered spiritual power in his body back into one. Then he pushed it with his own will. This driving force that can compete with the constant force of the intelligence core under normal conditions became the key to breaking the balance. Nanling's will and the constant force of the intelligence core pushed all the true energy in his body together, running little by little in his body according to the trajectory of Xuanfeng, and little by little going through the meridians that have been opened in his body. And I don't know if it's an illusion, where the spiritual power passes, his body seems to have recovered a certain amount of activity. His body can use this method to adapt to the drastic changes in time and space in the hyperspace. Nanling felt very excited. He didn't know what more benefits this change would bring to him. Just now he felt that his ability to control spiritual power had been greatly improved. He felt that after coming out of the hyperspace, he must try to break through to the 8th level of key refining and open up the last 2 extraordinary meridians. In fact, because of the radiation injury, he had delayed for a long time before, and he had just broken through to the 7th level of key refining not long ago. In terms of accumulation, it was obviously not enough to break through to the 8th level of key refining. But in terms of control, he was fully qualified. At the same time, he also discovered something. As the spiritual power ran in his body, his perception of his body was gradually recovering, but he couldn't get his body moving again, just like a nightmare. After running like this for a while, he felt a burst of fatigue and fell into a deep sleep. Fortunately, he could recover his spirit through conscious sleep, otherwise he might have to sleep for a month. In this way, during the 1 month of the Zhuoxia hyperspace flight, Nanling played games with her boss for 8 hours out of 24 hours, then spent 5 hours practicing the control of her spiritual power, slept for 8 hours, and then spent 3 hours learning various knowledge. Work, practice, study, rest, extremely regular. Chapter 47 Strange Galaxy and Planetary Life. The 1 month time when time stood still was up, and the Zhuoxia, a work of art, was ejected from the hyperspace, as smoothly as if it was just bouncing on the surface of a water drop. Nanling ejected from the hyperspace static state, and felt a little dizzy at the time. But the next moment he was shocked by the spiritual power that suddenly became active in his body. Fortunately, these spiritual powers are indeed more active than before, but also more obedient. In the past month, his will can be said to be completely permeated into every corner of his body, and he has completely controlled these spiritual powers. Even because he has cooperated with the constant power of the wisdom core more and even has a feeling of running in, he vaguely discovered that he can actually control this constant power to do things for himself. Just like at this moment, he subdued this constant power with a thought, and then adjusted its direction of operation to the trajectory of running to the new meridians, and then under the control of his own will, he poured spiritual power into the last 2 strange meridians that have not yet been developed. Yes, Nanling found an interesting place. That is, when his will can override the constant force of the wisdom core, this constant force that was originally set according to a fixed trajectory can actually be shaped at will according to his ideas. This is very wonderful. The 2 meridians were slowly injected with spiritual power, constantly expanding and nurturing. Although it is not like when enough spiritual power is accumulated, it can be naturally nurtured by dispersing spiritual power into the meridians and then connected at once, but the speed of this autonomous development is much faster than slow accumulation. Nanling first let the spiritual power flow through these 2 meridians, and then used the constant force of the wisdom core to push the spiritual power to maintain the slow operation in them. This is the practice route of the 8th level of key refining. Of course, there will be no problem with the operation of the wisdom core, but the speed and intensity must be reduced to some extent, so that the newly opened meridians have a process of adaptation. Nanling felt a little tired after finishing his body. There is no instant comfort in realm breakthrough, only after passing that point, there is a feeling of increasing fulfillment. At this time, there was movement in the work group. Fanny. Let's all connect to the bridge with the wisdom core or superbrain. We're here. As she said that, an authority was opened to Nanling. He used this authority, and then the scene in front of him changed, and he saw the scene on the bridge of the Zhuoxia. At this moment, he could see that the captain, Miss Fanny, the first mate, Ms. Mo, and Aunt Liji, the third mate and intelligence officer, all appeared on the bridge in the form of holographic projection. My goodness, this is simply a ghost bridge, there is no living person here at all. Liji still hasn't recovered a little, she said. It's not the first time I've jumped in hyperspace. Why is it so strange this time? It feels like I've had a nightmare for a long time. Nanling, Fanny and Mo's projections looked at each other, but didn't say anything. They knew this was a good sign, indicating that the life level of Liji's brain was also improving. At this time, Fanny turned on the detection equipment on the bridge, and the unique galaxy composed of a white dwarf and a planet in front of them was displayed in front of everyone. So beautiful, Liji couldn't help but exclaimed, it seems that her condition has recovered well. It is indeed beautiful. A colorful huge disk appeared in front of everyone. In the center of the disk was a faint light spot, and at the farthest end of the disk was a planet circling with a long tail. Liji had already entered the state. The superbrain connected to various detection equipment on the bridge and said, this disk is made of gas, and judging from the operation of this white dwarf galaxy, these gases are actually the atmosphere of the planet that has been stripped away. The stratum density of this planet is very high, and the surface gravity is 2.1 g. It can be judged that it should have been a very large gas planet. It's just that the atmosphere is being stripped away, and only part of the atmosphere is left on the surface. In other words, this planet was originally a gas planet, but now because the thick atmosphere is being stripped away by the gravity of the white dwarf, only the rocky core and part of the atmosphere are left. Mo said lightly. From this aspect, there is no need to worry about the energy supply of the spacecraft. This disk is full of helium and hydrogen gases. They can be used as fuel after extraction and processing. The first mate is worried about a different angle. Fanny asked curiously, "What else? Tell me what else?" Liji's expression changed slightly, and then she said, "I didn't expect that there would be signs of life on this planet. It's a pity that the density of the surface rock layer is too high, so we can only detect it in the shallow layer. We can only detect signs of life under the shallow surface." Nanling looked at the surface image of the planet, but saw that the surface of the planet was reddish-brown rock, and countless active volcanoes were erupting continuously. This would have made the surface temperature of the entire planet rise higher, like a lava hell. But because of the stripping of the planet's atmosphere, the heat of the planet dissipated very quickly. He saw a parameter and said, "The average surface temperature of the planet is 112. It should be hotter underground, but what about the illumination of this planet?" Liji immediately said, "Although this planet is located in the former stellar expansion range, and even because the distance is too close, the atmosphere has been stripped away to form this beautiful gas disk we see. But it is precisely because of the existence of this gas disk that it greatly blocks the light from the white dwarf to the planet, making its illumination not that strong. Congratulations, Fanny, you can consider naming this galaxy. You have discovered a star system with life. No matter what form of life this is, the planet we have developed is appreciated in value." Fanny seemed very happy, and she asked, "Then we are considered to be making money?" Mo shook his head and said, "We can only say that the planet is appreciated in value. To make money, we have to cash it out." Fanny said, "Oh," and then said, "Then hurry up and get the spaceship close by, and we will conduct a close-range detection." The spacecraft does not require human piloting, so it is naturally operated by the artificial intelligence Shiaxia. They brought the spacecraft closer to the planet's orbit and used all kinds of detection methods, and indeed they obtained more information. Liji said, "It has been detected that the geological activity of this planet is very intense, and the internal pressure is extremely high." Mo said, "This is normal. If it is closer, the gravity of the white dwarf can even tear it apart." Nanling said in amazement, "But how can life be born in such an extreme environment?" "Well, it's not surprising that life can be born, but the problem is that this planet is definitely not the native planet of this galaxy, right?" Liji said. "According to calculations of the orbital trajectory of this planet, it is constantly approaching this white dwarf. It is expected to enter the danger zone in about 1,000 years, and will be torn apart by the white dwarf in 3,000 years at most. But what can be seen is that the process of falling towards the white dwarf has been going on for a long time, otherwise such a vast gas disk would not be formed, and its own temperature would not cool down so quickly." Fanny pondered and said, "So, the life on this planet is actually a temporary product of its falling towards the white dwarf and cooling down due to the stripping of the atmosphere. For the entire universe, this is a mayfly that was born and destroyed in a short moment. But no matter what it is, Fanny can't wait to get ready. How can you not land on this kind of planet to explore it? As for the landing equipment, it will be prepared by their quartermaster Nanling." Chapter 48 Landing Preparation. Nanling looked out the French window with his room and could already see the huge colorful disc-shaped white dwarf galaxy. It was a very beautiful sight to watch it quietly. As the quartermaster, he only needed to stay in his room to complete everything. The production line on the ship was fully operational, and each piece of heat-resistant and pressure-resistant energy armor adapted to the current planetary environment had been modified and then sent to the combat preparation room by the conveyor belt. In this combat preparation room, more than 100 landing combat personnel had naturally gathered. These landing combat personnel were naturally the newly recruited crew members this time. The important departments on the spacecraft were not confident in using such people. They were almost all landing explorers. Fanny and Mo entered the combat preparation room together to manage it, and the 3 retired personnel of the White Feather Corps naturally followed them. Captain Fanny must personally lead the landing troops to explore this planet with strange life, and Mo was worried that Fanny would go alone, so she naturally followed. So when the captain and the first mate were busy, the affairs of the entire ship would fall on Liji, the second mate. She had to deal with various affairs on that bridge, while Nanling had less time to spare after dealing with the military supply affairs. Just like now, Nanling can sit on the recline, enjoy the beautiful scenery in front of him, and then slowly eat snacks and drink sparkling water. Don't be too carefree. This is probably the so-called making money while lying down. At this time, Liji sent him a private message. "I always feel a little strange." Nanling asked, What's strange? Li Ji said. I think the trust of the two ladies in you seems to have increased a lot all of a sudden. When did you gain their trust? Nanling was surprised at Li Ji's sharpness. After all, this trust was earned by him playing with for a month. He asked. How did you see it? When I was explaining the work just now, that girl gave me a lot of instructions, but she said almost nothing to you. Don't think I don't know, those instructions to me are actually restrictions. The intelligent AI Xiaxia here is watching. In comparison, they seem to be very confident in you. Nanling hesitated for a moment. He could just find a reason to get away with it, and he knew that Li Ji would not ask again if that happened. But he said calmly, you will understand after a while. Li Ji was slightly surprised and said, I thought you would just find a reason to perfunctory me. Nanling said, I just don't think there is any need to lie to you in this regard. Li Ji shook her head and said, well, anyway, you have touched me again. Nanling. ... How can this person be moved so easily? But he also knew that from Li Ji's life experience, trust and loyalty are such precious qualities. People like Fanny and Mo are born noble. They are surrounded by good people during their growth process, so this quality may be very common in their hearts and they are very easy to trust others. But Li Ji is different. Her life process is full of bad people, so she really cherishes partners with this quality. He said, okay, you get busy, our two bosses still need you to guide them. Li Ji didn't say anything more. Not long after, the front half of the hull of Zhuoxia was separated from the bottom, which is the entire landing module. This is a module unique to the hunting ship. Not only can it be used as a spaceship, but it can also be unfolded into a forward base after landing. It is specially designed for young masters and young ladies to have a comfortable living environment when they explore the wild planet. The landing module carried those people and landed steadily on the planet below. The only living people on the Zhuoxia spaceship were Nanling and a brain. Fanny and Mo pulled everyone down to train the team. The scene of the landing module landing was projected on Nanling's retina. Although the atmosphere of this planet has been stripped off a lot, it is still thicker than that of ordinary planets. The landing module experienced intense atmospheric friction and landed with red flames, but it looked very stable. Fanny and Mo maintained a connection during the communication. Nanling asked, Boss, how does it feel to explore an alien planet for the first time? After playing with him for a month, he is indeed more familiar with it. Fanny said excitedly, we haven't started exploring yet, but I'm a little uncomfortable without you around. Mo rolled her eyes at her, obviously complaining that this girl could say anything she wanted. When Li Ji heard this, she said in Nanling's private message, ouch, when did you get so close to this young lady? How come I didn't notice when you used your beauty trick? Nanling quickly responded, no. Then he said in the work group, Boss, I can only give you the best support up there, and you can definitely handle this kind of small situation with your ability. Fanny nodded, then smiled and said, it's not an 8-hour work system this time, right? Nanling immediately said seriously, work seriously, I'm on call 24 hours a day. Mo said, okay, stop talking to each other here, Fanny, why don't you think about what to do after landing? Fanny said indifferently, why are you in such a hurry? Let's talk about it after landing. She was quite willful. Mo showed a helpless expression. Nanling understood Mo's helplessness, because Fanny was a true genius. Not only was she already a Jindan cultivator at a young age, but she also had strong learning and thinking abilities. She was indeed able to deal with the temporary situation after landing and was able to handle it well. In comparison, Mo, who was equally capable, seemed a little clumsy. Nanling sent a private message to comfort her. Sister Mo, you don't have to worry. The boss can handle it. Mo responded, I'm just a little discouraged, but I'm not worried. Nanling said, there's nothing to be discouraged about. Different people have different characteristics. Just like the boss can only give advice, but you have to do it every time. Mo felt much better at the time. She said, are you bragging about yourself? By the way, you're allowed to use my gym when I'm not here, but you must clean it after use, understand? Nanling immediately said, don't worry, Sister Mo, I will make sure that our gym is clean. Mo's eyebrows immediately stood up when she heard the word hour, and warned, don't talk nonsense, or I will beat you up when I come back. Nanling smiled and said yes, 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 but in fact he didn't take this warning to heart at all. He didn't flirt with girls randomly. His mind was pure, otherwise Fanny and Mo wouldn't trust him so much. Anyway, he just wanted their money, nothing else. Chapter 49 It really delivered. The landing module landed on the reddish-brown land. Because they were worried about being affected by the erupting volcanic lava, they chose a relatively quiet place to land. When the landing module landed, the Euoxia's detection capability of the planet increased by more than 3 times. This was because the landing module had a high-power signal transmitter to ensure that it could maintain contact with the Euoxia in any environment. Liji looked at the summary of the stratigraphic analysis data here, and then said, "There is a complex underground tunnel system below you, which should be left by the life on this planet." Mo asked, "How much time do we have?" Liji said, "According to the crustal movement and bottom pressure in this area, if nothing unexpected happens, you have 77 hours to explore this area, but to be on the safe side it is best to return to the landing module within 60 hours. Mo responded, "Understood." At this time Nanling said, "I'm afraid it may be inconvenient for you to enter this underground tunnel for exploration. I will assemble an armored ground penetrating vehicle for you in the hangar if you are willing to wait for 5 hours. Fana said, "No need, let's set off directly." She was not willing to wait any longer. The following actions began, but before starting, Mo still found Nanling through the private message channel and said, "I still need you to work on the armored ground exploration vehicle." Nanling responded cheerfully, "I understand, just in case, I know, I have already started working for half an hour." Mo said with satisfaction, "Sure enough, I can be much more relaxed with you in charge of logistics." Nanling did not respond, because he could accept such compliments without pressure. It does take some time to assemble the armored ground exploration vehicle, and he has specially arranged 12 logistics robots to work together. It is just that it requires sufficient protection and various perfect and advanced plugins, which is more time consuming. However, even if it is not used this time, it is not a waste. After all, according to Fana's nature, it is right to prepare at first. At the same time, because there is a landing module as a signal relay, the information screen when Fana and others enter the underground passage can also be transmitted to the Euoxia very clearly. Nanling just ate snacks while watching the exploration light broadcast, which is quite comfortable. Only Liji felt a little stressed. In addition to paying attention to the movements on this planet, she also continued to conduct defensive detection in deep space. After all, this is already an area outside the wind territory. Even if the probability of encountering looters is not high, you have to be on guard. She really put a lot of thought into this good job. Nanling was different. He went to the gym to exercise well again and sweated a lot. While he was exercising, the exploration team on the ground finally encountered a different situation. That is, many long life forms appeared in front of the members of the exploration team. It was a creature like a snake, but its body was a blunt-angled triangular prism. It kept popping out from the surrounding rock walls and attacking the exploration team. Nanling could see these from the perspective of Fanny and Mo, which helped him get through the boredom of exercising alone. At this time, Mo said, "Why don't we withdraw first? These creatures are very difficult to deal with. It would be more convenient if we have the armored ground penetrating vehicle prepared by Xionan." Nanling's ears moved and he immediately paid attention. Is he going to survive? However, Fanny rejected it and said, "No, these creatures have no actual killing power against us. Although their surface temperature is high, they cannot break through the combat armor that everyone is equipped with. Let's go forward." While she was talking, she suddenly swung her hand and cut off a 3-edged snake. The casual sword made Nanling feel familiar, as if he could swing the sword in the same way. However, he restrained this impulse, knowing that it was the half of his bloodline with fire attribute that was agitated. He quickly restrained this agitation, and it could not cause any impact on him. After all, this was a part of his talent that he had decided to give up. He stopped working out and began to wipe the fitness equipment with the towel he was carrying. The main reason was that he found that Mo actually cared about this aspect, so he couldn't do anything that would make his leader unhappy. As for robots, Nanling was very tactful and didn't let the robots enter the entire upper cabin, because he found that in fact, neither Fan nor Mo liked to let robots intervene too much in their daily lives. Mo sent him another private message. "Is there any way to persuade Fanny?" Nanling rolled his eyes on the spot when he heard it. How could he have a way? However, after Nanling glanced at the readings on the bridge, he changed his angle and said, "The data of crustal movement is a little abnormal. I suggest you come back earlier." Liji immediately found the data that Nanling was concerned about and sent it out in the work group. Mo nodded and said, "This is indeed a situation worthy of attention. We should not be careless." She secretly praised Nanling. She didn't expect that this guy really had a way. In fact, this has completely met Mo's expectations. She just wanted a reason to withdraw temporarily. After all, in her opinion, such a walking exploration is too unsafe. Who knows that Fanny waved her hand and said, "You are making a fuss. I think this data has some abnormal fluctuations, but it is still within the 60-hour safety line. We originally planned to continue." Mo was helpless. Knowing that she couldn't persuade him this time, she could only deal with it with all her attention. She took out her melee weapon, which was a straight knife. The blade was wrapped with thunder. She did not hesitate to use her spiritual power. Suddenly, arcs of electricity jumped outside her graceful and capable combat armor. The spirit furnace on her chest lit up with a blue light, and then she used the lightning blade to open a passage forward. Wherever she passed, those three-edged snake creatures were completely unable to resist her penetrating power, leaving a pile of charred corpses. Her idea was simple. Since she couldn't persuade Fanny to come back, she would use her own method to make this exploration have a result as soon as possible. Nanling couldn't help but be attracted by the heroic figure of the charge. This kind of refreshing girl is really eye-catching. And what surprised him was that Mo's spiritual power attribute was actually the rare thunder attribute. However, this is not because the thunder attribute is very strong, but it is difficult to practice the thunder attribute in this era. Even people with thunder attributes will involuntarily transform their bodies and eventually deviate in another direction. After all, mastering this attribute and blessing the equipment is actually the most efficient use of power. It is not easy for someone like Mo to maintain his original body. Nanling looked at Mo's charging posture and praised him endlessly. At the same time, he also added 5 logistics robots to try to speed up the assembly of the armored bottom exploration vehicle. At the same time, just in case, he also asked some robots to wear combat armor first, and at the same time began to produce pressure-resistant and high-temperature-resistant equipment for the robots. It can be said that Mo was working hard in his own way, and he also used his way to be just in case. What no one expected was that 2 hours later, this exploration team actually delivered. It was a crystal embedded in the stone wall, blooming with brilliant white light, emitting a glittering brilliance in the dark passage. If you get close to it, you can even feel the soaring concentration of spiritual energy around you. This is a real treasure. Chapter 50. Danger approaches. They really found a treasure. Not only did Fanny not want to go back, but the other members of the exploration team were also not happy. Mo took out a detector to test and identify this gem full of spiritual energy. Liji began to look through the database. The speed of the superbrain allowed her to quickly draw the conclusion. This is the original crystal. Mo also concluded, yes, only the star system in the early formation of the Milky Way can condense the original crystal. Nanling also found relevant information. This original crystal is actually condensed by lava wrapped in spiritual energy. Because the spiritual energy itself is very volatile, if you want this spiritual energy to remain in the magma, it must be in an external high-pressure environment. This situation can only be satisfied by the stars formed in the high-density spiritual energy environment at the beginning of the birth of the Milky Way, and it can only be formed in the core of a giant planet or a gas planet with a particularly large mass. Nanling said in surprise, "Is this planet still wandering from the central area?" A wandering planet born in the central area of the Milky Way, after losing its original star, crossed a long distance to the nearby star field and was eventually captured by this white dwarf. Only this kind of 1 in a billion chance can create the current situation. Liji was much more realistic than him. She said, "There is no need to investigate its cause. Anyway, I know one thing, that is, our Miss Fanny has made a lot of money this time." She also said excitedly, "Fanny, go deeper. If you can find a mineral vein, even if it is just a small piece, your planet can be sold for tens of billions." Nanling was frightened by the number of levels that suddenly appeared. However, Fanny didn't seem to care about it. She just simply enjoyed the fun of treasure hunting. Mo rushed forward like a flash of lightning, and at the same time left a message in the work group. "Help me continue to pay attention to the movement of the strata. I have a bad feeling." Nanling responded, regardless of whether Mo could hear it. Another half an hour later, under the leadership of Mo, they had already gone deep into the strata. And this exploration team has fallen into a carnival, because they really found a mineral vein. The members of the exploration team couldn't help but touch it and began to pick the original crystals in the mineral vein. Their eyes were filled with greed, and dangerous emotions were brewing among this group of scumbags. Nanling took a bath and walked into the bridge with a fragrant smell. He saw Liji Mao sitting on the captain's throne observing the situation around him. Nanling asked in surprise, "Aunt Liji, why are you in this body?" Liji said, that body is being maintained in the room. I also have a bad feeling, so I decided to keep my body in the best condition first. Nanling agreed. If he didn't have this premonition, how could he come to the bridge? SYNOPSIS, enlarge the crust readings and display them. I want to know its real-time changes. The artificial intelligence SYNOPSIS responded. Yes, sir. Then a three-dimensional projection appeared in front of Nanling, and it seemed that the situation was not bad. This is understandable. After all, the previous landing site was not chosen casually. Naturally, it was verified by many parties to ensure a certain degree of safety. Nanling just looked at the computing power of his intelligence core, and then said, "Show the crustal movement of the entire planet." The picture in front of him changed again, becoming a three-dimensional perspective of the entire planet, with the movement of the rock layers and the flow of magma under the surface clearly marked. And each of these details is actually a large amount of data calculation, which is the computing power that only the Starship Intelligence Center can have. And Nanling's intelligence core used 50% of its computing power just to receive these calculation results, which shows how much information there is. He analyzed and observed for about half an hour, which was actually a learning process for him. Soon he found some rules and shared them in the work group. This is a model of the crustal movement of the entire planet. I found that the crustal pressure of this planet is very high, and it is rotating in the crust in a roller-like way to release pressure. Although the current crustal pressure explosion point is still some distance away from you, it is approaching your position. He summarized the phenomenon. Mo, who was paying attention to the situation here, immediately responded and said, "This is related to the rotation of the planet." Nanling was reminded and said to SYNOPSIS, "Show the global map of the galaxy." The next moment, the three-dimensional planet in front of him quickly pulled away in front of him, and then included in the orbit of the white dwarf galaxy. Nanling took a look and then said, "I got it. The crustal decompression area will be roughly generated when the planet rotates and faces the white dwarf." Mo asked directly, "How long do we have?" Before Nanling answered, Liji took the lead and said, "Well, I think we should also take the perihelion into consideration." Nanling looked closely and immediately found that the problem was a bit serious. In the orbit of this planet, it is about to pass the perihelion that is most affected by the gravity of the white dwarf. At the same time, the temperature on the surface of the planet began to rise rapidly, and even with a thick gas disk covering it, it could not stop this situation. Even Nanling could directly see the gorgeous picture similar to the aurora on the bridge. After a moment, Nanling included the perihelion in the calculation model and said, "Hurry up, you still have 20 minutes to leave there." "Hurry up, I can't guarantee that this is the correct time, we lack a complete modeling of this galaxy. The main reason is that Fana left too hastily. Normally, she should observe for a while before taking action." Mo reacted quickly and issued an order directly over Fana. "Everyone, return to the original route immediately." Fanny was stunned for a moment, and then stood weakly beside her without saying a word. She was a little scared, feeling that Mo was so fierce now. And the three former White Feather Legion members also chose to obey immediately. But the rest of the rotten people recruited in the lower area couldn't do it. A large amount of wealth was placed in front of them. How could they just give up? So a group of people hesitated and refused to move. Fanny finally came to her senses at this time. She hurriedly said, "Mo is right, hurry up, these are just floating wealth." Unfortunately, Fanny, whose leadership ability is always in a fluctuating value, obviously did not get a strong leadership this time. Her tone was soft and she felt like a little rookie. Of course, no one paid attention to her. Fortunately, Mo was much more decisive. Her first priority was always to ensure Fanny's safety. She immediately said, "Everyone, return to the logging module immediately. If you delay any longer, you will bear the consequences." After the voice fell, she didn't care about what happened to those people at all, pulled Fanny up and ran back. At this moment, Mo was really strong. The three retired Bayou sergeants naturally followed immediately. Unexpectedly, Nanling's acquaintance Lado Mu, after hesitating for a while, suddenly followed with his own people. To be honest, there were only two who followed, and the remaining one was also digging for the original crystal with red eyes. In fact, they were not unaware of the emergency, but people always have a fluke mentality, thinking that they can make a fortune in time. After all, the original crystal, they may not have the opportunity to collect it themselves next time. From this point of view, the current situation is due to Fanny's short-term indulgence of them just now. She herself didn't care about these riches, which completely triggered the greed in the hearts of these people. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.